Just enter.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We were talking earlier about the issue of Siri listening to you. Well, it's not just your own conversations being sort of harvested for data, but it's a problem with AI. So what seems to have happened yesterday is that Apple issued a alert saying that Luke Littler had won the darts before he had. I mean, imagine what would, if he then gone on to lose, how that would have looked. I mean, obviously, because he went on to win, at least they got the story right, but before it had happened. So what it seems to happen is that the AI farms existing stories, and what it has done, that's the alert. We can see the alert there now, and it also claiming that Brazilian tennis player Rafael Nadal had come out as gay, when actually a different Brazilian tennis player was actually mentioned in the original story. So what it does is you see that it's branded as BBC Sport. What the Apple AI system does is it farms alerts that it thinks people are getting from the source, and then summarises them into one alert.
To me, like you would assume, OK, the BBC are reporting this.
Absolutely.
So the BBC News might be saying something else.
So it could happen to any news organisation.
This has highlighted a massive issue. I mean, having editorial judgment and quality control, because if this is going on, it's just contributing to the flow of misinformation. And we know that this is a problem on social media, people reporting false things. But if it seems to come from trusted news sources, that is a massive issue in credibility. I mean, if you had something like Reuters, who's a big news provider, doing this, you could hold people accountable, you could make changes, but when it's the AI doing it, I mean, what do? You're going to have to reprogram it in some way.
And if you just lost control, if you're a news source, you've lost control of what goes out, because it basically farms it, puts your logo on it, and sends it out, even when it's nonsense.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good evening, this is the Saturday 5, and I know what you're thinking. Wow, Darren Grimes, he's had a bit of a glow-up, hasn't he? No. Hello, Darren, by the way. I'm Adam Cherry in for Darren Grimes. The poor lad is ill, I'm afraid. So the soft northerner is having some time off, he's recuperating, and they've parachuted in a very tough southerner to replace him. Now, it's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5. Alongside me is Will Kingston, Dr. Renee Hondekamp, Connie Shaw and Kai Wilshaw, and tonight on the show...
Pray for the influencers because the US has banned TikTok.
Labour has fudged the inquiry U-turn.
And is the economy in a death spiral with millionaires leaving every 45 minutes?
Despite Bridget Phillipson being the Secretary of State for Education, she apparently has no idea what's going on at universities.
And far-right rhetoric has real-world consequences.
Well, welcome to the Saturday 5. Now, not only have we got a temporary new presenter, we've also made a few tweaks to the format. So you lucky devils now get us for a whole extra hour, guys. How about that? Which we've called it the Saturday 5 Extra. How inspiring. In the 5 Unleashed, in the 5 Unleashed, this is a new segment, one of us will hit the streets, wonder who that'll be, to ask the great British public the big question of the week.
All right, do you have a favourite chair in your house?
Yes.
Which one?
Yeah, stay tuned for that. You won't want to miss it. We've also got another new feature, High Five. Where do they come up with these? I mean, it's just fantastic. Where we talk about our highlights of the week. And, of course, most importantly, we'll have more of you on the show. The 5 panel, us, will be answering your questions, and some of you will even be lucky enough to join us live on air. I mean, what could go wrong with that? Absolutely nothing. The show won't be totally unrecognisable. We'll still hear from each host who'll outline their arguments about a chosen topic. Then we all pile in and the fur really starts to fly. Of course, we want to know what your views are as well, so send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say. Don't forget to get your questions in for Ask the Five. No topics are off limits, but before we start tearing each other apart, it's your Saturday Night News with Tatiana Sanchez.
Adam, thank you. The top stories: at least 30 people have been injured after a ski lift collapsed in Spain. 9 of those are very seriously injured and 8 are seriously injured, according to the regional government. Around 80 people remain trapped, hanging in the chairlift at the resort in Aragon, according to the state TV channel TVE. The cause of the cable failure remains unknown. The Israeli military says it's preparing to receive hostages after their release from Hamas captivity ahead of the ceasefire deal taking effect. Israeli ministers gave a full approval yesterday. After a 6-hour meeting, that decision was made to support the deal at the final moments. In a phased release, the first 3 hostages are to be freed tomorrow, followed by 30 more over a 6-week period. Women and girls plus older men will be the first to be released. British hostage Emily Damari is reported to be among the first 33 hostages who will leave, according to the Jewish Chronicle. In return, Palestinian detainees will be released and a sharp increase in humanitarian aid. This all comes as the Israeli army says it conducted strikes on 50 terror targets across the Gaza Strip yesterday. Police have warned pro-Palestine protesters to leave Trafalgar Square or face arrest after demonstrators broke through a police line as they marched from a rally in Whitehall. 8 people were arrested earlier on during the march in central London. The arrests are for public order offences and for breaching the conditions that have been put in place. The Metropolitan Police has since posted on their X account saying around 20 to 30 more people who breached the conditions are to be arrested as well. Thousands of people are calling on the government to stop arming Israel. The pro-Palestine march had planned to assemble outside the BBC, accusing the corporation of bias. However, due to the proximity to a local synagogue, the Metropolitan Police has restricted the group to Whitehall. 1,000 officers have been on duty today. In other news, Donald Trump is to review the Chagos deal when he returns to the White House on Monday. The president-elect's team directly intervened in the British government's deal, demanding the delay, according to The Telegraph. Fears over Chinese influence, if the strategically important islands are returned to Mauritius, are fueling that delay. The US has a permanent military base on the East African island ahead of Trump's inauguration. GB News spoke to Reform UK leader Nigel Farage.
The other thing that's been discussed by everybody is what the hell were you thinking about with the Chagos Islands, Diego Garcia? The honest truth is that our government is getting off to the worst possible start with the incoming Trump administration. And my other worry, if we pivot towards the European Union, that makes getting a trade deal of some kind with Trump's America even more difficult.
Well, 4 days of special events beginning ahead of Trump's inauguration as US president. Thousands of people have been marching in protest today, including women's rights groups. The 47th president's inauguration will be the first to be held indoors since Ronald Reagan's in 1985 due to cold weather. Temperatures are expected to drop to -14 degrees. And a £20,000 reward is being offered in the search for the parents of 3 babies abandoned in London. The 3 children, the third of which, Elsa, was only an hour old when she was found abandoned in a carrier bag a year ago, are all siblings. Babies Harry and Roman were discovered in similar circumstances in 2017 and 2019. Police say despite reviewing hours of CCTV and analysing DNA, their parents remain identified. It's believed the mother has lived in the same area of East London for the past 6 years. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Tatiana. It's Saturday night and you're with Saturday 5. I'm Adam Cherry and I can promise that you're in for a very lively show. So I'm going to crack on. We're going to use host privilege. I'm going to go first tonight. So new research shows 10,800 people with assets over $1 million, which is about £821,000, left the country in 2024. Now that is a whopping increase of over 150% compared to the previous year. Why? Well, according to a survey by Oxford Economics, nearly 2/3 of those high net worth people, those high net worth individuals, are thinking about upping sticks because the government has changed its non-dom rules. And, you know, let's face it, the overall state of the economy at the moment is not helping, is it? So why does that really matter? Because, well, these people at the top earners, actually contribute the most in tax receipts to the Exchequer by a mile. So if they go, that leaves a huge hole in the Treasury's pocket that has to be filled somehow. And it means it comes from everyone else. Everyone watching at home, everyone who can't jet off to Monaco or Switzerland or the UAE. So I put this to the panel, guys. Has the government botched this? Is the economy in a death spiral? I'm going to start with you, Kai. Kai, I want you to rate Rachel Reeves' performance as the Chancellor of the Exchequer out of 10.
I'll rate the comms as 1 out of 10.
OK.
But actually, she's delivering on what Labour were promising in the first place, and one of the reasons she is not headed for the bin, the reason they're not headed for the bin is that Keir Starmer backed this. That's essential to his project.
What is she
They already knew, but they've accepted that we're in tough, torrid economic times. But now, and they accept that also you're not going to see the fruits of what they're doing for many years. Things like the growth plan, those projects, those programmes take years to actually.
I'm sorry,
they're betting on the fact that that is going to happen. And millionaires leaving the country, I don't think, is the yardstick that we want to be judging this government by.
Why not?
Yeah, of course, exactly. Will, we'll jump in there.
This problem with this government is that they still have this 1970s class warfare mentality that just says tax more, hit the rich. And you know what? That isn't just ideologically outrageous. It's also incredibly bad for this economy. You can't just keep raising taxes and expect to get more money. Eventually, you just narrow the base of people
millionaires
that you get money from. And that's what's happening now.
But millionaires have been leaving this country at quite outstanding rates since 2010.
And now they're making it even worse.
The reasons are not all the economy. It's lots of. No, that's completely right.
It went up 150% in 1 year.
Let Renee jump in there.
The millionaires leaving the country has jumped by nearly 160%.
Yes, but it's been going on since 2010.
No, stop deflecting. This is such a story. These people have looked at this government and they've decided that they're going to take their money into more friendly environments. And actually, what you mustn't forget, Kai, is that 60% of our tax revenues come from 10% of our highest earners.
Yes, of course.
If you lose those highest earners, you lose all the revenue we've got.
But you'd only become a net contributor to to your taxes when you earn over £42,000. So that makes sense. But actually, if you look at those people who earn more than £1 million in income every year, they pay an average rate of 35% in tax, and 11% of them pay less than 10%.
Okay,
so actually, it's right that they should bear the highest burden.
But they don't because they need.
Let's
They're not paying
take
anything.
that figure.
They don't pay enough.
5% of a million is a lot of money.
But it's not as much.
35% of £10 isn't so much.
But it's not as much as hard-working people.
I would prefer them to be paying 35% and staying than 55% and leaving and so paying nothing.
Well, middle-class people pay 45% in income tax.
But the other thing,
it's not fair.
But the other thing as well is that this is representative of businesses which are also leaving the country. Less startups want to IPO in the UK. Less investment from foreign countries is coming in. This is representative of a government that clearly has no idea how to drive growth.
Yeah, I think Renee is right. You know, you can say they should pay more, but I mean, 35% by my maths. I'm not the greatest mathematician. I think I got a B in my GCSE. 35 is more than zero, isn't it, Kai? So
yes, of course. But the reasons they're leaving are a myriad. It's actually to do with Brexit. I hate to say it. It's to do with non-doms policy. Yes, that the Tories were going to do anyway. It's to do with Russians leaving London, and the fact is, lots of these people in any case, have multiple properties across the world. They're incredibly mobile. So this isn't actually the chaos that you're making it out to be.
A London-born billionaire who made all of his money here, who has left for the Middle East.
And he's not the only one. You know what? I think he was in the Telegraph today. I saw a millionaire is leaving the country every 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. So, Carl, what do you guess what your view is on that? It's fine, I guess.
I don't think it's fine. I do think
on those middle earners who you say I feel are paying too much anyway. But surely, if all these high-income people are going, the burden falls on those people anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I don't deny that there's better ways of trying to tax the rich more, and I think it does need to happen. But I don't think picking out these stats, and these you can read articles going back years saying a record number of millionaires have left the UK. The reasons are more complicated than blaming a government who's been in office for 7 months.
Right. Let's move on to the next one. Who's up next? Who wants to go for it?
I think that's me.
Why don't you jump in? Let's go.
More of me, yes. Well, on Friday, a 32-year-old man was sentenced to life in prison, 22 years and 8 months minimum, for his brutal and unprovoked attack on a stranger last April. Now, the victim says that the pain in his hand is unbearable and excruciating and has turned his previously happy life into a distant memory. Now, who was the victim of this wanton crime? An Eritrean asylum seeker who was in temporary housing in a hotel. Who was the sick individual behind this attack? A neo-Nazi with Adolf Hitler's signature tattooed on his arm. Why did he do it? He said it was as a protest against small boats crossings, and in his manifesto said that he was doing his duty for England and sent this manifesto, or tried to send it, to a number of right-wing politicians. Well, colour me unsurprised. Turns out, if you wage a war on migrants in this country, stirring up hatred and sowing disinformation about why they come to this country and who they are and where they come from, no wonder that this rhetoric has tragic and devastating consequences. So shame on all the politicians who have let this be the case. Okay. Words have consequences, and cruel rhetoric against migrants is directly linked to far-right activity.
Renee, I can feel you want to jump in quickly, but I want to see what Connie has to say, because she didn't jump in the last one. We were going crazy. So, Connie, what do you make of this story? But also, I'm interested in the student perspective on this, what this sort of story, how it's discussed on campuses. What do you make of it?
Well, firstly, it's horrific what's happened, Kai, but I don't think you can go from saying that obviously an extremely radicalised person who idolises Adolf Hitler has got to that point, has Hitler's signature tattooed on his arm because of rhetoric against immigration. I think it's such a stretch. And so if you are concerned about people waging a war, as you say, against migration and immigrants and asylum seekers, then this repression of language that you're talking about is how we get to this point now, where we've been suppressing people's conversations about this so much, and now it's all exploded. If we allow people to have open conversations, then perhaps, like you say, things like this won't happen. But to say that this is as a result of certain language is absolutely ridiculous.
There's a difference between open conversations and the kind of awful rhetoric that you see in a succession of governments.
Can you give an example of whose language it is, then? Whose language are you referring to?
Priti Patel kicking off the Borders Bill by describing a plague of migrants. Suella Braverman saying that it was her dream and obsession to deport people to uninhabited islands. Do you think that's right?
Yeah. Whether or not it's right, you think they're responsible for a man who's become so radicalised that he has stabbed an asylum seeker?
A Hope Not Hate report showed that when politicians go out in the media, and when the right-wing press boosterise this kind of vile rhetoric, it's directly linked to an uptick in far-right activity on Telegram as the private communication channel. That is just a fact.
OK, I think the moment that you mention hope, not hate, you actually lose all credibility to your argument, because they are one of the most divisive and one of the groups that actually stirs racial division so that they can actually make these points. So I think you should put that aside, and I wouldn't use it again if I were you, if you want to argue this sensibly. The thing is, Kai, what you would like in your pretty little world that's all fluffy and lovely and there are clouds and sunshine everywhere is that we never say another word. Yeah. And if an Eritrean man or another man goes out and he rapes a girl, we don't say anything just in case it inflames some lunatic right-wing Nazi, because that's what he is, and he deserved every year of his 22-year sentence because he was a vile, racist thug. We're never going to get rid of vile, racist thugs. We do need to talk about what's going on in our country, Kai.
Yeah. But I think there's open conversations, as I said, there's open conversations, and then there's this extreme language that is redolent of the kind of things that you saw in some right-wing papers in 1939 about Jews fleeing Germany. It's exactly the same kind of narrative that's being peddled now by many of these outlets.
The Jews now, when they pick the pro-Palestinian people march on our streets every week, Kai.
I don't think that's right. You know that.
Yeah. Well, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'm less worried about colourful language than I am about the root causes of these particular problems. The fact is, Kai, you are representative of this leftist mentality that says words of violence, that says we need to just push these things off into the corners, and that's how you get cover-ups like grooming gangs. That's how you get migrant crime, which is rampant across this country. We need to be less worried about the odd, colourful rhetoric and more worried about the problems themselves.
I mean, Kai, isn't the Labour Party's current language on this pretty robust as well?
Robust, but it doesn't go to the lengths that you've seen in successive Conservative governments and on the rest of the political right. Things like smashing the gangs, for instance, that reframing, that is going after exactly the right people it should, and isn't directing the anger and the rhetoric against the migrants themselves.
So the people
that's
who are capable
important.
of
that
these
makes a
sorts of
difference.
crimes, people who are capable of these sorts of crimes are nuanced enough to distinguish these slight differences in language. Is that your argument?
Because it becomes part of the culture. What we've seen is the mainstreaming of the extreme language in the last few years. So yes, things like this contribute. It's exactly that, because one might be a drop in the ocean, but it contributes to a hell of a lot more.
Connie, I just wanted to jump back to you again, because I said earlier, the attitude to this on campuses, you're a student at the moment, I'm interested in how people in university campuses react to these sorts of stories, and, you know, Kai's talk about language and how we discuss immigration and asylum. What's it like at university at the moment on these sorts of issues?
Well, like Will was saying, it's very much the mainstream student view that words are violence, but on this topic specifically, you wouldn't dare discuss immigration at university in case, because even saying anything, I imagine that you would get shut down quite quickly. But yeah, words of violence is a very common narrative.
Right.
Would you be able to talk about the right-wing Nazi thug?
Oh, of course you would, yeah.
Well, there we go. All right, we're going to leave it there. We're going to move on, because still to come tonight, Connie will be telling us why she was banned, talking about students and colleges, banned by the Leeds Student Union. But next, Renee will be giving her take on Yvette Cooper's grooming gangs announcement. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
Aaron McLean, the goal machine here, used to play for Peterborough United. You bagged loads of goals for them back in the day. But I've got a bone to pick with you, young man. You scored at the City ground against Nottingham Forest for, was it Hull City?
For Hull City, yeah.
Why did you do that?
Well, that was my job, unfortunately. I must say, that was actually one of my favourite goals.
Was it really?
Because I remember, obviously, playing at the City ground, unbelievable stadium, historic.
It is great.
So, and we beat you 1-0.
OK, no need to rub it in. These sports clubs, whether it's football or rugby or whatever, should offer two alternatives, either a professional footballer, or if you don't quite make it, you can still go and play football at a lower level, but have a career as well, maybe be an electrician or a plumber.
100%. You know, listen, I've had multiple conversations with various different people, whether it's the PFA or whether it's clubs. Even players who do have careers, you know, there's so many that don't make it and don't quite make it to the level, or only play at a lower level. There's so many that do have long careers, but once you come to the end of that, you've spent, you know, for me, I spent 20 years as a professional footballer. Once I finished playing, what do you then do for the rest of your life? You know, at 35, once you retire, you still have to have a purpose in life. But I'd almost be starting from ground zero. I'm fortunate that I went into coaching and then went into the media.
That's good.
But for every one of me, there's hundreds that don't. And I've got so many friends who, I've got to say, you know, have really, really struggled on the, you know, mental health side.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually, because you go from, like, playing in stadiums, big stadiums, small stadiums, crowds, singing your name, and all that sort of stuff, that adulation, the buzz of winning games, and, you know, the downs of losing games, and you go from that to sort of nothing when you finish. I mean, that's a big come down there.
It's a huge come down.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. And as always, thank you for your emails about tonight's topics. Going to go through a few of them. Maltese Phil, I guess your name is just Phil, but for now you're Maltese Phil, left the UK in 2004. I'm not a top earner. I don't have £1 million in the bank, but I could see the writing on the wall. It was the best decision ever. Well, according to the research, Phil, you're not the only one.
Where did you go?
Malta, presumably.
Well, yeah, Maltese Phil. He went to. I don't think he went to. Maltese Phil. He's there in Barbados. Anyway, Julie says Labour don't seem to understand that it is business owners and entrepreneurs that make the money. So, yeah, Kai, you're not worried about that? All the people making the money are leaving the country, aren't they?
No, and Labour's done a lot of groundwork pre-election to try and foster these business relations. Yeah. Whether or not that's working when Rachel Reeves has now lost her chief business engagement advisor, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Right. It's time for our next debate. That last one was pretty feisty, so let's go again. Who is going to go for it, Renee?
Me. I'm going to go for it.
Let's go.
OK, so Labour this week showed us that they are doing exactly what they're accusing the Conservatives of doing. They're playing politics with young girls that have been raped by mainly Pakistani Muslim men in the grooming gangs scandal. So they know that we need a national inquiry. The victims know that we need a national inquiry. Everybody knows that we need a national inquiry. But they're hoping they can get away with fudging it and just doing a little U-turn that isn't really a U-turn. So painfully, this week, Yvette Cooper came to the House to announce her inquiry, and we've got some footage here.
Effective local inquiries can delve into far more local detail and deliver more locally relevant answers and change than a lengthy nationwide inquiry can provide. So Tom Crowther, KC, chair of the Telford Inquiry, has agreed to work with the government to develop a new framework for victim-centred, locally led inquiries where they are needed, and as a first step, to work with Oldham Council and up to 4 other pilot areas.
Right, there was Yvette. So there is going to be an inquiry, but it will be local inquiries, not a national one. There'll be national support, but Yvette couldn't answer whether or not anyone would be compelled to give evidence in them, so basically not. They're going to put £10 million behind it, which is a bit weird because Telford alone costs £7 million. And they're only going to look at 5 towns, where our own Charlie Peters has showed us that 50 towns are affected. So what is the point of what they have announced? I mean, imagine you're one of those girls who's been ignored, who's been bullied, who's been taken back to her rapist by people in power, people that they trusted. What would you want? I think I know what I would want, and I'd want it yesterday. I'd want an inquiry that was national, that got the names of every single person in a position of power who covered up this conspiracy, who continues to be in their role, and I would remove them immediately. I'd prosecute them and send them to jail. I'd want to know if it is still going on. I think it probably is. And I also would want to lift up that cultural stone and find out why these men of Pakistani Muslim culture feel able to rape girls of any other culture. And this will be a difficult conversation for Labour to have, and one that we need to have as a society, which will not appease their voter base. One has to ask, why don't they want this inquiry?
I'm just going to put this question to the whole panel, actually. Maybe you're right, Renee, they don't want it, but it does feel like the mood music is changing and it's going to happen anyway at some point. We're just doing a slow motion use, like face-saving U-turn.
Why? Why
And
don't they
actually
want to do it?
politics.
Because they don't want to swallow their pride. I mean, and as I'll go on to speak about in a moment, this is twice in a week Labour have failed to do a U-turn.
Yeah.
You know, these things. It's not a U-turn, and it keeps these things that they're doing keep being labelled as U-turns. They're not U-turns, and like you said, Renee, they feel like they can get away with saying they're doing something and just thinking that the public are going to say, "Oh, that's great," but actually. It's nothing to do. They're not doing anything that's been requested. Even what Andy Burnham, Dan Carden, who I'll mention the BBC didn't even report on when he first broke the party line. They did not even report the fact that the first Labour MP had broke the party line calling for a national inquiry. I do not believe that Labour MPs, in their heart of hearts, think that what this government is doing is the right thing to do. They know, like you said, everyone knows we need a national inquiry. I can't believe that Keir Starmer hasn't faced more backlash from his backbenchers.
The reality is they want local inquiries so they can isolate particular groups of people as just isolated evil people. The whole thing about a national inquiry is that it will force a national conversation about national problems, particularly around Islam, around multiculturalism and around immigration. You don't have those conversations at local inquiry level. You only have that if it is a national inquiry because they are national issues that require a national response.
Well, and presumably, if they do get those answers, it's actually going to uncover the people in senior positions who covered this up, and they're going to have to explain why.
Yeah, you don't want people marking their own homework. Kai, do you think we need a national inquiry?
One of the main justifications in law for a national inquiry is public interest. And what they've failed to do, the Labour Party at the minute, and it's sort of shocking to watch, and you see this pattern in a lot of decisions that haven't been taken in recent months, is they've just not understood the mood music of the country until the point where it's too late. And I think that's what's happened here. Because politically, 76% of Brits believe that there should be a national inquiry. Whether or not you thought, actually, the right thing to do is implement the recommendations from the previous inquiry first. Whether or not you believe that, the time for that passed long ago. And they haven't gripped that issue well enough. And now I fear that anything they do, even this middle-of-the-road fudge, is not going to be enough for people.
So we concur, and I agree with you, but why would any political party or single person, not want to investigate the multiple gang raping of children?
But honestly, my honest view is I don't think it's fair for us to say, oh, there must be something else that we're not seeing, or to suggest that these people, many of whom, Jess Phillips as a great example, have campaigned on these issues for years. I don't believe for a second, that these people don't believe that this needs to be dealt with. However, I think it's just another case of not seeing the woods for the trees.
Are they squeamish about being seen to be on the side of the wrong people? By which I mean they're placating the far right if they go for this national inquiry and if they go whole too quickly. And they're just, it's sort of a political choice.
They're squeamish about everything, really, right now.
OK.
Because they have, the Labour base is a particular makeup of people in the UK, and they're worried about losing that group of people. They're also worried about the threat from Reform, because Reform is pulling voters from Labour and from the Conservatives. So they're worried, and in their worry, they are doing not very much in some instances.
They're worried that this would smash their multicultural worldview, which is the cornerstone of everything that the modern left believes in. That's really why we're not hearing anything now on a national inquiry.
Yeah.
Right, well, we're going to leave it there for now, because still to come tonight, should we follow America's lead and ban TikTok? But next, what is happening to free speech on university campuses? You're with the Saturday 5, live on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, throughout this weekend, it's going to be cloudy, gloomy and cold with a touch of frost as we go overnight into Sunday morning. Looking at the bigger picture, then we have this area of high pressure extending to the south of the UK, squeezing the ice bars further towards the northwest with a weather front just coming in to Northern Ireland. But through the rest of this evening and overnight, we hold on to this blanket of cloud, pushing its way further northwards into Wales and into northern parts of England. There'll be some clear spells in between, temperatures quickly falling here to give a touch of frost in places, mild further towards the west. Now to start Sunday morning then, a bright but cold start across northern parts of Scotland. Dry for all of us. There will be some spells of sunshine in between. Across Northern Ireland, we hold on to a lot of cloud once again, but temperatures holding up at around 7 or 8 degrees. Across northern England, though, a cold start here with a touch of frost, maybe even some mist and fog patches. And across the southern parts of England, that's where we'll see some drizzle, but even some snow grains just moving their way northwards. So it is going to be a cloudy, murky, gloomy picture on Sunday with a lot of cloud across the country. There will be some breaks in the cloud to give some sunnier spells, but these are mostly across northern parts of Scotland with outbreaks of rain just coming in to the far west. Otherwise, a cold picture as well, temperatures struggling 2 or 3 degrees, milder further towards the west. So a cold start on Monday morning, a touch of frost in places, often cloudy, and we'll see some rain just coming into northern parts of Wales and the Midlands with showers around the north and west coast of Scotland. Similar picture on Tuesday and Wednesday, a lot of cloud, outbreaks of rain and drizzle with temperatures around 7 or 8 degrees. Bye-bye for now.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Saturday 5, as always, thank you for your emails. Let's just go through a couple of them. So Mark says Labour can flap about all they like with a flimsy inquiry, but the real national inquiry will come at some point, regardless of their attempts not to have anything effective. I think several members of this panel broadly agree with that. Grumpy Grandad says Dr. Renee is right. It has to be a national inquiry, but because it is happening in so many towns, 5 out of 50 is an insult to all the victims that won't get justice. It is a national disgrace. Right, well, as I said, thank you for your emails. Please do keep sending them in as we continue with our debate throughout the show. Speaking of our debate, who's up next?
I am.
Here we go.
So this week, Bridget Phillipson, the Secretary of State for Education, has unshelved the Higher Education Freedom of Speech Act after previously shelving it as one of her first decisions when Labour came into power in July last year, branding it as a Tory hate charter. And they were concerned that allowing freedom of speech at universities would open up harm towards students. And funnily enough, that was very similar to the language that was put against me when I was suspended from my role at Leeds Student Radio. I was accused of putting the health and safety of fellow students at risk. Bearing in mind, just a reminder for the audience, those views were that women are adult human females. But Bridget Phillipson, she clearly, despite the fact that she is the Education Secretary, she clearly does not understand what's going on at universities, because in this new Labour version of the Higher Education Freedom of Speech Act, or HEFSA, they have removed not only the tort and statutory powers from the Act, which means the Act basically has no power anyway. They have also removed student unions from being obliged to uphold freedom of speech in the same way that universities are. And clearly, Bridget Phillipson does not understand that it is student unions themselves who are the most authoritarian they're the most authoritarian people who are stripping people of their freedom of speech, and they need to be held to account. They are the ones who are run by students who manage to ban certain people for having certain views that do not go along with the mainstream student consensus. And so not only has Bridget Phillipson got rid of the only thing that was giving the Act power in the first place, but she has stripped students from being able to use the powers that this Act has. The Office for Students is what will be regulating this, and not only student unions not held to the same account anymore, but the Office for Students won't even be considering complaints from students. And this week as well, to demonstrate how much of an issue this is with student unions and student bodies, the University of Exeter, their student newspaper Expose, published an article on me, branding me as a hateful transphobe, and they said that I am not worthy of a platform in student journalism. So the LGBTQ Society at Exeter said the following. They said
I've got it here.
Sorry, Adam, it is quite a lot.
I've got it here, so this is going to set off the debate. They said, we are disappointed that Expose has chosen to platform someone with such hateful and transphobic views in this article. I presume that's you, Connie, isn't it?
Right. It is me, yeah.
Trans people are a vulnerable minority, with anti-trans hate crimes rising by 186% in the past 5 years, according to Home Office figures. And this sort of rhetoric further emboldens the harassment and attacks against our trans community. Whoa! Wow, that's quite a charge, Connie.
Yes. So this rhetoric was you saying that you were an adult human female. Dangerous, Connie.
Yeah, but I mean, this sort of thing is... But we were chatting about this off-air a little bit, weren't we? And the kind of... The orthodoxy that you see on our student campuses is getting so much more... important and you know, if you go against it, look what happens. You're in so much trouble, aren't you? It doesn't seem to be... There doesn't seem to be any improvement here at all. It's completely inclusive
this comes
or
back
exclusive.
To, you know, this is the way you should parent your children, that you promote what you permit. And this is the same. This is what they're doing in reverse. They're not allowing you, they're not permitting you to say anything that doesn't marry with them so that you can't promote it. And it's slowly, slowly shutting down information. Now, if you feel that your argument in anything is sound, then you shouldn't be scared of debating it. But unfortunately, they know that they can't debate it on so many fronts, and so therefore they're not allowing it.
Well, that's the slogan, like, you know, it's no debate. Yep. That is what they like to say. I mean, if these students really think that I shouldn't have a platform on student journalism, then instead of just telling me that I'm a hateful person, why can't they tell me why women aren't adult human females? I mean, what is so annoying about this whole thing is that this has happened in the same week. On Monday, I woke up to this article written about me. On Wednesday, Bridget Phillipson says that she is, you know, she's happy to make sure that student unions are not held to the same standard, but it's student unions who are doing this to students.
What we've really got, Connie, is we've got this bill that when Labour came in, Kai, they decided, first time ever in history, they decided to actually not go forward with a bill that has already made it onto the statute book. So that in itself was unprecedented. And this was to protect free speech in universities, which is the place in the world where students should have free speech to learn and debate. Now they're bringing it back, I think, because they're reading the mood music that actually it's wrong for us to have done this because it looks like we're authoritarian lunatics, which they are. So they're bringing it back, but they're taking all the teeth out of it. So this is another fudge. They're bringing back this bill is a fudge.
What do you reckon, Kai?
Look, I feel for you because I've been through similar things and it's never easy being in the public eye. But you've not been cancelled. Your article was on Graham Linehan's blog. You're on a national TV channel. You know, actually, in a sense, what happened to you in this editor role was free speech, was people exercising their own free speech and saying, well, I don't, you know, coming out and saying that they don't want you to be in that role. Is that not fair? Is it just free speech for the views that you agree with?
So can I just clarify that you think that students should be able to get rid of other students if they have a view they disagree with?
If there's a groundswell of support and if people are angry about...
But there wasn't. It wasn't a democratic vote.
Yes,
that's cancellation. Free speech is saying, I don't like your view, Connie, and this is why I don't like it. Convince me otherwise.
Free speech.
That's free speech.
Any limited company can get rid of whoever they like. Can refuse customers that they don't agree with. Student unions. But this is free speech taking place, no? And you were in a role where you were, you had a senior role deciding what gets published
So
or
you're in
not.
favour
And
of the
what if
tyranny
your
of
views were
majority.
coming into
So you're in favour of the tyranny of majority.
No, but I think there should be a
That's what
debate.
you just said.
But what you're no, but what you've no, but
You
what
just
you're
said if there is an upheaval of support to get rid of you, then surely that's fair.
Well, that's free speech, isn't it?
No,
it's not.
People are allowed to. Yes, people are allowed to make decisions on who have sort of positions in student bodies. I mean, I don't think that's
groupthink.
No, that's not. That's democracy. I really don't understand this.
Cancellation is Connie can still appear somewhere and say what she thinks in some scenarios. But you know, just because she can say it here, she can't say it in the university where it's supposed to be about dialogue and free expression. She hasn't been cancelled. Cancellation is about people in that environment doing everything they can to make sure she can't speak, which is exactly what's happening.
When I was at university, some editors of student newspapers decided they didn't like the line that paper was taking, the ideology that most of the editors supported, so they started their own thing. That's just diversity of views and free speech.
I'll remind you, and I don't want to make this about me because I'm trying, you know, obviously it is about my situation, and it's not just me, this has happened to so many people. I'm lucky that I knew the right people to go to, such as the Free Speech Union. Most people go through this on their own, but you have to also remember, I wasn't even saying these things on the student radio because I knew they wouldn't like it. It was a personal podcast which had nothing to do with Leeds Student Radio, and they still managed to take me down from a position that had nothing to do. I wasn't expressing those views as part of that position. Does that not display to you the extent at which student unions...
I just don't agree that student unions are this ridiculous outlier, because the fact is some of these views would get you fired from jobs. Not your views, the views that you're talking about. But people do lose their jobs for saying things. So that happens all across the world. It's the real life.
You believe that there are only two sexes and I'm an adult human female is now a protected characteristic if we want to go down that line, which I think is a disaster. But you think it's OK that no one would argue with Connie why she isn't an adult human female. They just cancel her.
No, I think that there should be a healthy debate. I totally agree with you on that. And I think that, you know, if you reached out to certain communities and talked about some of these issues, I think that you'd find people who are willing to debate it. I don't accept that British universities have become completely infertile ground for debate and discussion.
You need to visit some universities, I'm afraid, Kai, because this really is what's going on at universities, and that's my point to Bridget Phillipson. She does not understand what is going on, and if she would only listen to students who this has happened to, and like I said, this is not just me, I have had so many messages that I lose count and I can't reply to them all because this is like it's an epidemic of this happening to students. It's not just me.
Yeah, I wonder how many people look at your situation and think, oh, well, that's exactly why I don't say anything. Look what happens. It's not worth the aggro. And is that what we want?
I've been made an example of. Why would anyone else who has a committee position at any other student society want to then come out and say, actually, no, I do think that women are adult human females?
And that's exactly what it's intended to do.
Well, you've been quiet on the corner there. What do you reckon?
Kai's argument is so incredibly nonsensical that I'm actually struggling to get my head around it.
You stun them into silence.
This happens every week.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Like, surely the main point here, and I think you actually kind of got to it at the end, is that this is about the culture of debate and discussion in education. This isn't the same as corporates, Kai. It's not the same as the media. There is a particular culture that needs to be promoted in higher education around debate and discussion and the promotion of both sensible ideas and dangerous ideas. And it is so obvious from everything that Connie said is that if you don't have the particular high status beliefs on a university campus, you will be shunned, you will be ostracised, and potentially you will be cancelled.
Well, the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, great debate, by the way, guys, we've got to end it there. Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, defended her position, saying academic freedom and free speech are fundamental to our world-leading universities, and this government is committed to protecting them. These changes protect free speech, but avoid implementing excessive and burdensome provisions which could have exposed struggling universities to disproportionate costs, diverting money away from students to pay lawyers. The decisions we are making about the Act demonstrate that we were right to pause commencement and to review its impact before making decisions on its future. Well, we got there in the end. So, still to come tonight, Will is asking if the tick-tock clock is ticking. Try saying that quickly. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
For anyone hoping to escape the midwinter gloom in the UK and find some sunshine, well, things are improving across the central Med, but they are deteriorating in Iberia. We've had some decent sunshine, and that continues in Spain, but for Portugal, a band of rain moves in on Sunday, and that will progress across Spain into Gibraltar during the next few days. Meanwhile, this low, which was named Storm Gabri by the Italians, is weakening, so less wind and rain for Italy, but it stays breezy in the Greek islands.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Have you noticed that more and more stores are closing? Well, last year, apparently 13,000 stores closed for the last time on the high street.
Well, experts warn the worst is still to come for our small businesses.
Well, let's talk to retail expert Jeremy Baker. Good morning to you, Jeremy. How bad is it and what can be done?
Well, nothing can be done about it. Retail is like that. It's a boom and bust operation. So last year, let's say you had a shop and it was booming. This year, the consumer can just change their mind. They don't need to come back to your shop ever again.
Well, it is sad, Jeremy, because our high streets are the beating heart of our communities, aren't they? And for many people, I know I can relate to my high street, it is such a depressing sight, walking down there and seeing them all boarded up and closed down.
But how often do you walk down that boarded up high street? I think people move on to something else. The online world is very big. Yeah. And lots of other things are very exciting. And so people, you know, the shop, I like to go to my GP in a shopping centre and get my tests done there rather than tramp off all the way to the GP, for example. And children could go to little schools in the high street. I've seen that happen already. So lots of things could happen to the high street. It could be much more a social centre. Much more kind of like pubs, coffee shops, all that. Charities. I don't see anything wrong with charities taking over. But the idea of the shop-centred high street, finished, that's gone. Never coming back. Goodbye. It's not sad, it's just life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This January, history will be made again.
Join GB News as we bring you full coverage of Donald Trump's presidential inauguration.
From the swearing-in ceremony to the celebrations, we'll be there to capture every moment that shapes the next chapter of world politics.
The best guests, live updates and unparalleled insight as Donald Trump becomes the 47th President of the United States. The inauguration Monday from 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
To the Saturday 5. Now, your emails have been absolutely flying in. Connie, good news, you've got lots of new fans. Mark says, you go, Connie, 100% behind you on this. Don't let them grind you down. Rosa says, Kai, that's mob rule. Shame on you.
Shame on you.
Blimey.
I'll take it on the chin.
There we go. And this is Maltese Phil again, he's back. Do universities still have debating societies, or are they pointless now?
Everyone they're pointless. I requested if we could have a debate on gender ideology and invite James Esses, who I know is a friend of the show, and they said no because they didn't want to undermine the sovereignty of minority groups.
The sovereignty?
Yeah, that was the word that they needed. It's more like Leeds Agreement Society.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lord.
Right, OK, time for our next debate. Up next, it is Will.
Yes, thank you, Adam. It's a bit odd, actually, not hearing a Willy joke before my monologue. I may actually be able to focus on this one.
Darren will be back.
Pray for the influencers, everyone, because the US, as of today, has effectively banned TikTok. Undoubtedly, this is a good thing. Put to one side that TikTok is effectively a digital strip club for 14-year-olds. Put to one side that it is poisoning the minds of a generation of young people. They're important issues, but they're not the issue. The issue is that TikTok is Chinese spyware. It is an enormous data-gathering exercise for the Chinese Communist Party. How do we know that? Well, we know that because the US legislature actually gave TikTok, or ByteDance, the parent company, the opportunity to divest and sell off TikTok to an American company or a different country, or a company from a different country, for billions and billions of dollars. They didn't take it. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you the value for these guys isn't in the commercial effectiveness of the company. It is that it is effectively a spying platform for the Chinese government. Now, the question becomes, why on earth are countries like the UK, Australia and Canada still allowing TikTok in their countries? There's a very good chance that the UK and the US will be at war with China by the end of the decade, and it really isn't a particularly good idea to have Chinese spyware on the phones of millions of young British men and women and boys and girls if that conflict was to arise. This is a great move. Keir Starmer needs to get some guts and do the same thing.
I mean, the main argument against doing this is that TikTok is really fun and we all like it. Right? Is that good enough?
Yeah, it's bizarre. And I think, in fairness, Connie and I had a spirited conversation on this in the green room earlier. Yeah. That is pretty much your argument, isn't it, Connie? Oh, well, I quite enjoy looking at twerking videos, and therefore we're going to compromise national security.
I have to be honest, I think your characterisation of TikTok is clearly from a perspective of someone who doesn't have TikTok, which you said you don't have TikTok. I appreciate that there are some issues with the way that perhaps some safeguarding regulations come in, and that there are some inappropriate things on there. But at the end of the day, I appreciate that this is a security issue, but it is a shame, and it would be great to see someone buy it out. And because, you know, unfortunately, in a way, TikTok has become the hub of culture for people of my generation. It is where people get their news if they don't read the news otherwise. It's where they learn how to cook. It's where they buy things. It's where they start their careers. My flatmate in first year dropped out of uni, and she now has an extremely successful career being a social media content creator.
Sure. I'm more than
I appreciate you understand that point, but it is a shame if it does go, it will be cutting off like a limb of my generation.
Everyone just migrate over to Instagram Reels over.
Yeah, there'll be
It's not the same. It's not the same.
Well, they'll make it the same, won't they? Because they can. There's no one else. There's a gap in the market,
but
surely.
Won't that gap just be filled by another Chinese company? It will just be filled by the next one along.
Well, it may not be a Chinese company. If it was a Chinese company, there would be the same regular law against it. But I've got no doubt an American company could very easily build this platform. It's not particularly hard technology.
Instagram or YouTube will instantly go, oh, brilliant, here we go, let's get straight in there.
Yeah.
So, you know, the argument that it's popular is, well, all the features can just be copied and brought over to
I mean, I know I teased you in the green room that you're a libertarian, you shouldn't be banning anything, but I agree with you. I actually agree with you that, of course, it's a security risk. And actually, I think what it does is it typifies the fact that we're not taking the threat from China seriously in any way at all.
Well, the other clue that you can see that this is a propaganda tool for the Chinese government is that Chinese TikTok looks very, very different to American TikTok. Yes. You don't see transing the kids videos in China. You don't see woke rainbow flag videos in China. And that is because it is partially a propaganda tool.
And you can only use it for a certain amount of time for a kid, rather than restrict it massively.
Corrupt kids with the woke mind virus.
We haven't got a load of time, so just very quickly, you want to jump in on this?
No, absolutely. I mean, the opposition would say slippery slope, banning things, is that good? But in the Supreme Court judgment that formalised this, they said that it justifies differential treatment, just the level, the scale, and just how deep the data gathering goes on UK and US citizens in particular.
I've just seen that, according to NBC, Donald Trump has told them in an interview that they may actually extend the ban by 90 days or so. So you haven't heard the last of this yet. Loads more to come on the show tonight, including Renee and Kai going head-to-head, and we're joined by Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp. Do not move a muscle, it's going to be a good one.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, throughout this weekend, it's going to be cloudy, gloomy and cold with a touch of frost as we go overnight into Sunday morning. Looking at the bigger picture, then we have this area of high pressure extending to the south of the UK, squeezing the ice bars further towards the northwest with a weather front just coming in to Northern Ireland. But through the rest of this evening and overnight, we hold on to this blanket of cloud, pushing its way further northwards into Wales and into northern parts of England. There'll be some clear spells in between, temperatures quickly falling here to give a touch of frost in places, mild further towards the west. Now, to start Sunday morning then, a bright but cold start across northern parts of Scotland. Dry for all of us. There will be some spells of sunshine in between. Across Northern Ireland, we hold on to a lot of cloud once again, but temperatures holding up at around 7 or 8 degrees. Across northern England, though, a cold start here with a touch of frost, maybe even some mist and fog patches. And across the southern parts of England, that's where we'll see some drizzle, but even some snow grains just moving their way northwards. So it is going to be a cloudy, murky, gloomy picture on Sunday with a lot of cloud across the country. There will be some breaks in the cloud to give some sunnier spells, but these are mostly across northern parts of Scotland with outbreaks of rain just coming in to the far west. Otherwise, a cold picture as well, temperatures struggling 2 or 3 degrees, milder further towards the west. So a cold start on Monday morning, a touch of frost in places, often cloudy, and we'll see some rain just coming into northern parts of Wales and the Midlands with showers around the north and west coast of Scotland. Similar picture on Tuesday and Wednesday, a lot of cloud, outbreaks of rain and drizzle with temperatures around 7 or 8 degrees. Bye-bye for now.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Amazing. Just the best feeling ever.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
An absolute monster. It took Chloe and Sean Ing 90 minutes to reel in this gigantic 8-foot-long monster fish from Chigborough Fisheries in Essex. And upon weighing this enormous marine beast, it was found to have been 7 pounds heavier than the existing British record, a 143-pound catfish caught also in Essex. But as I understand it, you actually went for a Chinese meal when fate struck. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So I was fishing an area of Chigborough where you have to fish at a fair distance. So I cast my rods out and then we ordered a Chinese. And yeah, so I got the bite at about 10 to 8 at night. And then about 20 minutes into it, my phone started ringing, the Chinese guys at the gate with my delivery. So I had to send a couple of guys off to go and get it. And then, yeah, the fight, obviously, you can't just stop the fight to go and get your Chinese. So, yeah, the fight went on, for about an hour and a half in total. There's no net in the world that's big enough for this fish. So we had to send out, first of all, I sent out a mate, Alex. He went out there to go and basically use what we call a sling. So that's a safe apparatus that we use to take the fish out of the water. He then went to and he turned around and he was like, we're going to need another sling. So then we sent out another friend with a sling, and these slings are 4 foot long each. So then we had the catfish wrapped up in 2 slings, and it was still slightly longer than that. And then we got to a point where we was like, now we've got to try and get it out of the water to photo, to weigh it, because obviously we knew then that it was possibly going to be a UK record.
GB News.
It's Saturday night and this is the Saturday 5. I'm Adam Cherry in for the very poorly Darren Grimes, along with Will Kingston, Renee Honeycamp, Connie Shaw and Kai Wilshaw. Plenty more to come tonight, including should President-elect Donald Trump win the Nobel Peace Prize? Interesting one, that one. Plus, the 5 unleashed. Do you turn into your parents when you turn 43 years old? All the important questions. It is 7 p.m. and this is the Saturday 5. Still to come tonight, we will be talking to Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp on the latest developments in the grooming gang scandal. We'll also tackle another 5 fiery debate topics in tonight's Bunch of 5. Sparks guaranteed to fly yet again. Then we'll be answering your questions in Ask the 5, so make sure you send them through www.gbnews.com/your say. But first, it's your Saturday night news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Adam, thank you. The top stories this hour. Dozens of people have been injured, some seriously, in a ski lift accident in Spain. That incident took place on a chairlift at the Astun ski resort, which is on the Spanish border with France in the Pyrenees mountain range. At least 30 people have been injured there. 9 of those are very seriously injured. 8 seriously injured, according to the regional government. State TV channel TVE reported around 80 people remain trapped on that chairlift. The Israeli Prime Minister's office says they cannot move forward with the ceasefire deal until, quote, we receive the list of hostages to be released. In a speech this evening, Benjamin Netanyahu said this war has changed the face of the Middle East, while suggesting the campaign is not yet over. It comes after the Israeli military earlier said it was preparing to receive hostages after their release from Hamas captivity ahead of the ceasefire deal expected to take effect tomorrow. In a phased release, the first 3 hostages will be free tomorrow, followed by 30 more over a 6-week period. British hostage Emily Damari is reported to be amongst the first 33 to leave captivity. In return, Palestinian detainees will be released and a sharp increase in humanitarian aid. Pro-Palestinian protesters have been arrested in Trafalgar Square today on suspicion of breaching protest conditions after demonstrators broke through a police line as they marched from a rally in Whitehall. Thousands of protesters met a line of police officers and eventually broke through, with those who made it to the square later finding themselves being held in one corner. The Metropolitan Police warned the group to disperse or face arrest, later announcing around 20 to 30 people who breached the conditions were still being detained and being arrested. Those arrests are for public order offences and for breaching conditions put in place by officers. Thousands of people are calling on the government to stop arming Israel. Donald Trump is to review the Chagos deal when he returns to the White House on Monday. The president-elect's team directly intervened in the British government's deal, demanding the delay. According to The Telegraph, fears over Chinese influence if the strategically important islands are returned to Mauritius are fueling the delay. The US has a permanent military base on the East African island. And the White House has this evening said a warning by TikTok it'll shut down in the US on Sunday unless tech firms get assurances they'll not be punished for violating a law that bans the app is a stunt. US President-elect Donald Trump said today he would most likely give TikTok a 30-day reprieve from the ban. Last April, US President Joe Biden signed a law which gave TikTok a deadline of the 19th of January to separate its US business from parent firm ByteDance, the China-based company whose control of TikTok is widely seen as a national security threat by the US government. This week, the US Supreme Court rejected TikTok's appeal and unanimously upheld the law banning the app. But The White House has this evening said that actions to implement this law will fall to the next administration. So TikTok, they say, and other companies should take up any concerns with them. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in an hour.
The very latest GB News direct to your smartphone. Sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Tatiana. It is Saturday night and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Adam Cherry and I can promise that you are in for a very lively hour. The first hour's, I mean, how about that, eh? We've got another 2 hours to go. So it is now time for our main event. Excited there. It's now time for our main event. Only days out from his second inauguration, President-elect Trump is already making history and flexing his deal-making skills. Trump already taking credit for the historic ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. And now attention turns to Ukraine, where the Donald has vowed to end the war in Ukraine within 48 hours. I think it was 24 and now it's gone up to 48, so OK. Right, two major issues which plague the Biden administration, of course. And Piers Morgan this week is speculating that Trump could actually be gunning for a Nobel Peace Prize. But does he deserve one? Seconds out, it is round one. Next, here we go.
OK, so...
Who wants to go for it?
I'm going to kick this off. So, Piers Morgan said this week that he wouldn't be surprised if within 2 years Trump has got a Nobel Peace Prize. I think he's probably right, but actually I'm going to start this piece with saying he should already have one. He should have got one in his last term as presidency. So let's not forget that 2 weeks after going into the White House, Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize for his, and I read, extraordinary efforts to strengthen international diplomacy and cooperation between people, and the new climate that he fostered with the promotion of nuclear non-proliferation in international relations fostered by Obama, especially in reaching out to the Muslim world. Let's just have a look at that record, shall we? He did reach out to the Muslim world. So, Afghanistan, disaster. He said he was going to withdraw from Afghanistan. He didn't withdraw. He had to put more troops in. Then eventually Biden withdrew and left it to the Taliban, where women are no longer allowed to be heard. The USA went back into Iraq during Obama being in power. They were dragged back into that. He didn't want to. They helped bomb Syria back in those plans there. He launched more drones bombing different places around the Middle East than any other president in history. He supported the campaign in Yemen and Pakistan using drones. And in Syria, he said he would settle Syria. And of course, he didn't. Assad has only just fallen. So frankly, Obama was a warmonger. He wasn't somebody who was striving for peace and really reaching out to the Middle East. Trump hasn't had wars. He didn't start any wars. Anywhere he's been into, he's tried to settle them. Certainly the ceasefire this weekend has happened because of Trump, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does sort Ukraine. So let's actually give him his Peace Prize posthumously.
Oh, Renee, I haven't heard anything more ludicrous in all my time on this channel.
Amazing.
And look, all you've just done is give the reason for not giving Obama a Nobel Peace Prize rather than the positive case for Trump. Now, let me tell you, there is a very negative case for giving Donald Trump the Nobel Peace Prize. He is a political arsonist and a geopolitical arsonist to boot. He's now said he's going to take over the Panama Canal, reopening wounds of the 1989 invasion where hundreds were killed in the country. He's threatening to take over Greenland, which is, by the way, in case we forget, the territory of a NATO ally. He wants to take over parts of Mexico to sort out the failing war on drugs. And let's not forget that he assaulted his own democracy in the US only a few short years ago. Now, all of that is to say that you might be more optimistic than me, Renee, but if you believe that Trump's term is going to be anything other than unbridled chaos, then I think you're going a bit cuckoo.
OK, so I'm definitely going cuckoo because I believe that Trump's term, for once, will actually turn inwards, look at his own country, be protectionist, and I just hope that some of what he does in the US rubs off on the UK.
Let's bring the panel in on this one. Let's get everyone involved. Well, what do you make of these arguments? Because I think if you separate the rhetoric of Donald Trump with the actions, you end up with a very different appraisal.
That's right. And the thing that really frustrates me about these sorts of cannabis-smoking, hand-holding, kumbaya preaching lefties like Kai is that they don't understand how peace works. Peace is achieved through strength. There are bad people in this world and they respond to signs of strength. And that's something that Trump innately understands, and that's why he is an effective deterrent to global instability. And we don't have to predict necessarily how chaotic his second term will be, because we can look to his first term where the world was undoubtedly a more stable place because of peace through strength.
I love that you brought this up, that he understands strength. No, he's besotted with strength. He loves his strongmen. He loves Xi Jinping. He loves Vladimir Putin. That's what he responds to. But actually, in diplomacy, what you need is consistency. And this rhetoric that he comes out with undermines the amazing work that his diplomats are trying to do elsewhere.
I repeat my point. The world was safer under Donald Trump, and you have no response to it.
You can't just list a myriad issues that an American president inherits. You can't blame the Ukraine war happening when it did on Joe Biden. It could have happened. It could have happened in Trump's term.
But I didn't. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Pakistan. What about all those under Obama?
Because where did this come from? He didn't ideate all these wars by himself, did he? The US has a long and checkered history, you're completely right, of invading countries and projecting its global power. But they've retracted from the world stage to a degree. That's an ideological choice. Obama was trying to do it, didn't succeed.
Molly, you want to jump in there?
I do actually have a bit more sympathy with Kai on this point. I think we can't just point to the fact that previous presidents did a lot worse things for international relations than Trump, especially now with what I'm very concerned about Trump's presidency is what might happen to NATO and what he's suggesting about what the US's relationship will be with Europe and NATO going forward. I think it would be quite quite a quick jump to say that he's deserving of a Nobel Peace Prize already when we don't know. And at least wait until the end of this presidency, see what he does with NATO.
Your point's an interesting one, because actually it comes back to Will's point that what he's doing with NATO is he's using strength. And what will happen is every NATO country is now going to step up to the mark and increase their military
perhaps.
They are absolutely going to.
But let's at least wait until the end of until the end of this next presidency.
You can have a problem with the colourful rhetoric around NATO, but his underlying point that European countries need to spend more on defence is absolutely right.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and they are. Poland's planning to spend 5% of GDP, but even in that kind of environment, when peace in Europe, as we've seen, is so brittle, it is not a stretch to imagine Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania being next in the firing line. And if you are not willing to full-throatedly commit to NATO, and he isn't willing to do that, that's a problem.
Well, no, what he says is, I'm not going to carry NATO. No longer can the world rely on the USA. And I think he's right. Why should they?
But that's not because Trump's coming into office. It's because the Ukraine war has meant that Europe is already spending a bunch of money on their defence systems. Germany is now investing a huge amount, having not done so historically. So that change happened whether or not Trump was going to win the election. That was years ago now.
Renee, what do you make of Trump's comments about solving the Ukraine war? It's gone from, as I said in the intro there, 24 hours, 48 hours.
It's 100 days now, his foreign secretary said.
You see, by solving it, does that really mean Zelensky, get down, sit on the table, sit at the table and say, give up some land?
Of course it does, but there's no other way that this war is going to end.
That's right.
So he's being a realist. And the writing was on the wall for this a year ago. We've just thrown billions into this land, that most of which is unaccounted for, when the solution to end it was never going to be any different.
Yeah. Well, that's what Putin was counting on from the start, isn't it? So he's won here.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but you're never going to beat a nuclear-armed power that can't afford to lose. That is the unfortunate reality.
Well, might as well let him take over Poland then.
But we set the scene for Putin in 2014 when we let him take Crimea. Again, you promote what you permit. We let him do it then. Why wouldn't he do it now?
But I'm not sure why that's an argument to let him continue, by emboldening him, by letting him take more land.
But the thing is, there is no way of beating Putin in Ukraine unless we want to get our troops in there. And frankly, we've only got about 10.
Right, well, I think we're gonna jump back to the break now, because when we come back, it's the big interview. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp joins us live. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Lauren, let's start with this, shall we? How children's TV may be harming, not helping young minds.
Yeah, so this is an article in the Express today, a big double-page spread as a result of some new research in a new book that's coming out by a child psychologist, saying that children's television, and I think perhaps more importantly, the way that children consume television and video product now is perhaps not as healthy for them as we would hope it would be. And there's quite some distance from children's television of the past, of the sort of the Bagpuss and Clangers and Ivor the Engine era. And I think what's interesting about this is particularly the how children's television is consumed angle, because children are now put in front of screens significantly more often than they were, certainly when I think we were growing up. The content that they are consuming is not great for their brains and their learning and development, which Floella Benjamin of children's television fame is now leading a big crusade to say that some of this is really, really bad for children.
These days, they're not watching the TV that we all watched when we were growing up. They're not even watching GB News in the morning.
What are they
would you
thinking?
believe it? But they are watching this absolute drivel all day long on YouTube, and because obviously all our TVs are now connected to the internet, or they're getting TikTok on their TV. It's not even, so they don't even necessarily have to have smartphones or iPads. They can just watch this stuff on TV, and it is rubbish. They are watching it and they're obsessed with it. Oh God, Skibbity Toilet or something. Have you heard of this?
No.
No? Well, you'll have viewers who have got who are parents of sort of 13-year-olds, and this Skibbity Toilet thing is, they're all obsessed with it, and this is a really annoying sort of theme tune or thing that they sing at you.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. As always, thank you for all your emails about tonight's topics. We're going to go through those later on, but first we're going to get to the big interview, because Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has been forced into a U-turn this week over the grooming gangs scandal, announcing 5 initial local inquiries.
Crowther, KC, chair of the Telford inquiry, has agreed to work with the government to develop a new framework for victim-centred, locally led inquiries where they are needed.
But Labour have still fallen short of a full national inquiry, which the opposition and many others, and we've talked about it this evening, are calling for. One man who is leading the charge for that national inquiry is Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp. I'm pleased to say he joins us now. Chris, thank you very much for joining us here on the Saturday 5 on GB News. First question really is, what are you hoping for from a national inquiry? What do you hope to get out of it once it's all said and done?
Well, it's time we get to the truth, because it's quite clear for many, many years, possibly decades, public bodies, the police, the Crown Prosecution Service, local councils, almost entirely Labour, have actively covered up these rape gangs who were systematically abusing and raping thousands, possibly tens of thousands, but certainly thousands of vulnerable young girls. These gangs were of predominantly Pakistani heritage, and because of that, these squeamish and cowardly public bodies deliberately disguised what was going on for fear of so-called racial cultural sensitivities, which is absolutely disgraceful when young girls were being raped and abused for so many years. We need to get to the truth behind that. The only way to get to the truth is a statutory public inquiry, a national inquiry. And there are two reasons for that. Firstly, what the government announced last week only covers 5 towns. Now, this happened in probably 50-odd towns at least. Your journalist, Charlie Peters, has done a great job uncovering this. What about the other 45 towns? Why are they being ignored by the government? There was convictions just, I think, last week for 8 men, again of Pakistani heritage, in Keighley, convicted of raping young girls. That town hasn't been looked at all. That's the first problem. The second problem is that these Labour government inquiries, local inquiries, don't have the legal powers you need to compel witnesses to give evidence, to take evidence under oath, and to compel the production of documents. And, you know, as recently as last year, we saw one of these local inquiries in Manchester try and get evidence, and these public bodies continued as recently as last year to cover up, to withhold evidence, and the chairs of that inquiry therefore resigned. Now, with a proper public inquiry, the people running it have the legal power to compel evidence to be produced. And given the heart of this whole scandal is essentially a cover-up, you can see why it's important the inquiry has those legal powers. And I want to see the people responsible for covering this up held to account. There's a criminal offence called misconduct, a common law offence called misconduct in public office. And I want to see any public officials in those local councils, for example, who covered this up, convicted and sent to prison for what they did.
Chris, I'm joined by our panel, and they may jump in with a few questions in a moment. I just wanted to say, first, I'm sure people watching at home will say this is all very well and good, and many probably agree with you, the national inquiry is what's necessary. But they might also say that your party was in power for 14 years, and no such inquiry took place during that time either. So what do you say to that? Why didn't this happen sooner?
Well, there were inquiries that were set up. There were specific inquiries into some towns like Rotherham. There was also the ICSA inquiry, which was a national public inquiry, but it only touched on this issue. It didn't go far enough. The Grooming Gangs Task Force was set up by the previous government a couple of years ago, and that led to 550 arrests of these vile perpetrators, and the last government started mandating the police to record data about the ethnicity of perpetrators. So quite a lot was done, but frankly, it wasn't enough. We need more. We need to get to the truth, as I was saying a few minutes ago. I also want to see, as I said, the public officials who covered this up prosecuted for what they did. I also want to see every single perpetrator eligible for deportation to be kicked out of the country. Now, one of the problems was Pakistan wasn't accepting those people back, but we created, the last government created a legal power to use a thing called visa sanctions. That's where if a country like Pakistan won't take back eligible people who we'd like to kick out, we can say, well, we're going to stop issuing visas to people who want to come from Pakistan into the UK until the government of Pakistan starts accepting these people back who we want to kick out. We created that legal power a couple of years ago. I'd like to see the government use that to ensure that every single eligible perpetrator who can be kicked out of the country is kicked out of the country, because we don't want any of these people where we can deport them to stay here. I'd like all of them who can be deported to be kicked out.
Renee, did you want to jump in there?
I did. Hi, Chris. So just picking up on that point you've just made, it just puts me in mind of the case that we saw a few weeks ago of a man who was born originally, I think it was in Pakistan or one of the other countries close by there, who had raped a child. And he'd spent 8 years in prison. And he couldn't be deported because of his right to a family life. And he had a wife here and children here who apparently needed him more as a paedophile than him being sent back to his own country. So won't that law that you've just talked about just fall down at the first hurdle once they go to the ECHR?
Well, some of the cases that I'm aware of, we went through all of the legal processes. The last government went through all of the legal processes and overcame those kind of challenges, those ECHR-based challenges. It was the issue with the government of Pakistan. So I would like to see those visa sanctions now used. But look, some deportation cases are challenged on ECHR grounds, and we are going to be looking in the coming months at this ECHR question. My own view is that we need to strip away every barrier to removing people who have committed these kind of offences. So we are going to be looking at that question. Now, we're not going to be doing it off the cuff in a sort of casual way, because when it comes to overcoming these legal obstacles, we do need to work it through carefully. The ECHR is one issue to address, but there are other issues as well about the whole way our legal system operates. So we're going to be we Conservatives are going to be coming up with a proper plan in the coming months that will address these issues. We're not going to shoot from the hip, we're going to do it properly, but the objective of that plan will be to ensure that every foreign criminal, including these rapists, but actually, frankly, every foreign criminal, can get deported, because the British public, expect those who are not British citizens who commit crime to be kicked out. That's a completely reasonable thing to want.
Connie, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, Chris, I appreciate that you reference what the previous Tory government has done on this issue, but would you say it is fair to say that as Minister for Women and Equalities, Kemi Badenoch simply didn't realise the extent of how bad this was? And so, is it fair to say that the Tory government, the Tory party, their push now for this national inquiry, is it as a result of being aware now of the full extent as of the, due to the work of Charlie Peterson, GB News, or, are you, like your opponents would say, just playing politics here?
No, look, I don't accept that. I mean, first of all, I should say Charlie Peters has done a fantastic job for GB News on behalf of the public, exposing further facts in this scandal. So I have huge respect and admiration for Charlie and what he's done. And I'm speaking to him directly. I want to support his journalism and support his work that he's doing here at GB News. But I don't accept the point you made, though, because a lot was done under the previous, not enough, but a lot was done under the previous government. And that included, as I mentioned earlier, that Grooming Gangs Task Force, which saw 550 perpetrators arrested in just 1 year. And it saw the police being mandated to collect ethnicity data that they weren't doing before. We were also in the process, when the election was called, of legislating to introduce this mandatory reporting requirement. That basically says where somebody in a position of authority, like a teacher or somebody running a scout group or anyone in a position of authority, if they become aware of this sort of sexual abuse, they're under a legal duty to report it to the police. So there's a whole bunch of things that we did in government, but frankly, a lot more needs to be done. And that's why we need this inquiry, and we need to tighten up and strengthen the deportation work so that these vile rapists, where they are eligible to be deported, get kicked out of the country.
Chris, when you say the last government, I appreciate you're saying they did a lot of work towards this in your view, and they didn't do enough. Who do you say is responsible for not doing enough in the last government? Who are they still in the shadow front bench, these people who didn't allow this to go to the full extent that it should have done?
Well, it wasn't that people didn't allow things to happen. It was just a lot of action was taken, but more is now needed. I'd put it that way. And if you look at who is frustrating things now, we can see right in the middle of our sites, it's people like Keir Starmer, who Monday of last week, so just under 2 weeks ago, stood up and said it was jumping on a far-right bandwagon. Those were his words, a far-right bandwagon, to be raising these issues, to stand up for rape victims, young girls, to call for a national public inquiry. He was smearing, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, was smearing people like Kemi Badenoch, people like me, people like Charlie Peters, your journalist, who are standing up for these victims, who are calling for an inquiry. Keir Starmer smeared us as far right, and he smeared all of those campaigners, including victims campaigners, who want a full public inquiry. He smeared all of those people, and it was exactly that kind of attitude that Keir Starmer exhibited 12 days ago that led to this stuff being covered up in the first place. It was people like Keir Starmer saying 10 or 15 years ago, oh, it's racist to look into this, or it's a far right conspiracy to want to stop these rape gangs. That is exactly the kind of language that Keir Starmer used the week before last that led to this stuff, as I say, being covered up. So I was appalled by what he said, and in fact I called in Parliament on Thursday, so 2-3 days ago, I called on Yvette Cooper to apologise for Keir Starmer's language, but needless to say, she did not apologise. I also gave Yvette Cooper in Parliament an example of a young girl who had been abused and raped by one of these Pakistani heritage gangs when she was just 12 years old. There was a terrible case where the police found her being abused by an illegal immigrant and they arrested her. They didn't arrest the illegal immigrant. She's now calling for a public inquiry to hold those responsible accountable. But the government, Yvette Cooper, Keir Starmer, and all of their cronies are not, her name is Jane, are not listening to what Jane is saying. And it's my job, therefore, to stand up in Parliament and elsewhere and speak for young victims like Jane, who the government are letting down so badly.
Well, Chris, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for appearing with us on GB News. That was Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary. What do we make of that, panel?
I wish we'd seen some of this fire when they were in government, and some of the answers that he gave were, I think, inadequate. Look, there was inquiry, yes. The recommendations weren't taken forward. That's actions. He was talking about things that they'd done. Really, they'd set things up. A task force had an inquiry, did nothing about it. 550 arrests. Well done to the police for doing that, not the Conservative government. I wish we'd seen some of that, because then things like what Keir Starmer said about them jumping on the bandwagon wouldn't be so easy to dismiss.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't disagree with you, and I think there was much that they didn't do. I don't think the ICSA report actually looked... I mean, it hardly looked into this at all. It wasn't the main issue at hand.
It was a subsection of a subsection.
It really was.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't even take victims' testimony. What I'm more interested in, Kai, is why we need to get to the root cause of this, because it's cultural.
Yes.
And he said it was cultural. And that, turning that stone over, means we have to have a conversation as a country about our multicultural society.
Yeah, but one thing I would say, and one thing I would have asked is, yes, this review didn't go far. The inquiry didn't go far enough previously. In a way, a 3-month review, which hopes to figure out, essentially, what are those issues that weren't picked up? How might an inquiry look? Is there a role for also ongoing local inquiries alongside a national inquiry? An understanding of what we need to look at so that the next inquiry doesn't fail, I think is prudent. I think it's a good approach.
As we sit here now, there are little girls being raped around this country. We don't have time. We need to stop it now.
That's why it's time limited, 3 months. And we can't have a situation like you have with lots of inquiries where eventually it goes on for, I think, an average of 2 years that these things go on for, and, you know, in some cases up to 13. So I agree with you, but that's why they've done it in this time-limited way. So as much as I was saying earlier, they've been so politically naive not to get to the point as quickly as they should have, but actually maybe the review is the right approach.
We've got a few views coming in. Marie says, I've got time for Chris Philp. He's not too tainted by the previous Tory government. Talks common sense without coming across as being all about him. I mean, you know, yeah, he wasn't at the forefront of all the mistakes made the last time, which I suppose makes it a little bit easier for him. But the general point that I tried to make to Chris Philp there was, you know, they were in government for 14 years, and it's not just this issue, is it? It's a whole bevy of issues. They're always going to have that problem of what you were there for 14 years. You can't complain after 6 months, really, can you?
And it's difficult to believe that foreign criminals are going to be deported, because if they all were, there's 10,000 of them in our prisons. We wouldn't need to release anyone early because we'd have lots of space. But we know that the ECHR and our legal system prevents it.
Well, what do you make of all this?
Two things. I think your point is exactly right, that on the politics of it, this is the fundamental problem for the Conservatives, is that on every issue Keir Starmer can come back with that one-sentence response of, well, why didn't...
And he does. If you watch PMQ every week, he does.
Yeah,
I do the same.
Any political leader would. Yeah. And the other thing I would say, and the one thing I'm really worried about, is that we will look at individual rape gangs, we will see kind of the criminality, we'll identify particular problem areas, but we will miss the bigger, broader conversation around multiculturalism. I can very easily see saying that's just too hard and focusing instead more tactically on particular problems. We need to have that conversation.
I'm just going to stop it there, Renee, I'm afraid, because we have to go to break shortly. But first I'm going to read a statement from a government spokesperson for the Home Office. They said the following: no child should ever suffer sexual abuse or exploitation, and it is paramount we do more to protect vulnerable children, which is why we are working at pace across government to drive forward real action. There we go. Now, still ahead, it's the Bunch of Five. We are in for some quick, snappy rows. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, throughout this weekend, it's going to be cloudy, gloomy and cold with a touch of frost as we go overnight into Sunday morning. Looking at the bigger picture, then we have this area of high pressure extending to the south of the UK, squeezing the ice bars further towards the northwest with a weather front just coming in to Northern Ireland. But through the rest of this evening and overnight, we hold on to this blanket of cloud, pushing its way further northwards into Wales and into northern parts of England. There'll be some clear spells in between, temperatures quickly falling here to give a touch of frost in places, mild further towards the west. Now to start Sunday morning then, a bright but cold start across northern parts of Scotland. Dry for all of us. There will be some spells of sunshine in between. Across Northern Ireland, we hold on to a lot of cloud once again, but temperatures holding up at around 7 or 8 degrees. Across northern England though, a cold start here with a touch of frost, maybe even some mist and fog patches. And across the southern parts of England, that's where we'll see some drizzle, but even some snow grains just moving their way northwards. So it is going to be a cloudy, murky, gloomy picture on Sunday with a lot of cloud across the country. There will be some breaks in the cloud to give some sunnier spells, but these are mostly across northern parts of Scotland with outbreaks of rain just coming in to the far west. Otherwise, a cold picture as well, temperatures struggling 2 or 3 degrees, milder further towards the west. So a cold start on Monday morning, a touch of frost in places, often cloudy, and we'll see some rain just coming into northern parts of Wales and the Midlands with showers around the north and west coast of Scotland. Similar picture on Tuesday and Wednesday, a lot of cloud, outbreaks of rain and drizzle with temperatures around 7 or 8 degrees. Bye-bye for now.
This January, history will be made again.
Join GB News as we bring you full coverage of Donald Trump's presidential inauguration.
From the swearing-in ceremony to the celebrations, we'll be there to capture every moment that shapes the next chapter of world politics.
The best guests, live updates and unparalleled insight as Donald Trump becomes the 47th President of the United States. The inauguration Monday from 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This January, history will be made again.
Join GB News as we bring you full coverage of Donald Trump's presidential inauguration.
From the swearing-in ceremony to the celebrations, we'll be there to capture every moment that shapes the next chapter of world politics.
The best guests, live updates and unparalleled insight as Donald Trump becomes the 47th President of the United States. The inauguration Monday from 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Again, thank you very much for your emails. They are flying in. Ivor says, I'm sick to the back teeth of listening to Tory MPs bleat on about this, about national inquiries, immigration, etc., when they did nothing for 14 years, sort of echoing what we said earlier, really. It's a problem they're going to have, I think, until the next election and beyond, to be honest. We need a new broom in Westminster and quickly. OK, well, thank you very much, Ivor. Right, now it's time for this. Right, who is up first? Will, I think it's you, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll take it away, Adam. As I get older, I'm getting more interested in health and wellness remedies. And one piqued my curiosity the other day from that renowned health and wellness guru, Vladimir Putin. Vlad has been at his mountain getaway location, which apparently has a deer farm on the premises. And I've been told that one of Vladimir's favourite wellness practices is to bathe in the blood of Siberian stags.
Would you give that a go?
Well, that's going to be my question for the group. Are we particularly interested in a new wellness remedy around bathing in the blood of terrified Siberian
I think first of all, I think we have to question whether this is true, because we know that the Kremlin likes to paint this picture of Vladimir Putin as being this strong man. I cannot believe that this is true.
That's strange PR to throw out there.
No, I don't think it is. Not the Kremlin, I don't think it is.
But you see it a lot.
I don't think it is strange.
I totally agree. And you see it a lot with these Silicon Valley leaders and stuff as well, where the most ridiculous sort of therapies for longevity are coming out. The likes of Peter Thiel really subscribe to.
I think I'd like to eat the deer. I'm going to get hate mail now.
Rather than swim in its blood or something.
I think I'd rather bathe in its blood.
Well, apparently it is meant to be a testosterone-enhancing elixir that improves male potency.
So I'm not going to do that.
Right.
No,
that's understandable. It's got to be short and sweet. We've got to rattle through these. So, Renee, I think you're up next, aren't you? Let's go.
I mean, mine is really short and sweet. So the Royal Mint have announced that they're giving us a new £2 coin. Excited, I can hear you. And they're actually honouring one of our best authors ever. Actually, he was a time traveller, I think, George Orwell. And this is his coin now. This is actually the flip side. His actually bust is on the other side. And it actually says around the middle of that, Big Brother is watching you. Now, anyone who knows 1984 knows what that means. And I can't help but feel that they are now trolling us. They're flaunting what they're doing. That's the coin.
I think it looks honestly, I think it looks
good. At least they're admitting it now.
Yeah,
they're open about it.
It's out in the open. Right, I'm going to just go through mine very quickly as well, and that is, I'm talking about the Oscars, because apparently the Oscars are under threat in March because of the wildfires in Los Angeles. Now, as bad as they are, I don't think the Oscars should be cancelled. It's not because I love the glitz and the glamour and I want to see another millionaire get a trophy. It's actually because a lot of the people who work on that ceremony are really working in precarious employment. It's LA, you're in the showbiz industry at the bottom rung, and that ceremony is really important for them. And obviously, given the circumstances, I think it would be a real shame to cancel it just because of those fires, as bad as they are. And also, you know, it will raise awareness for a big problem that will still be going on for years and years when everyone has forgotten about it in March, such as the news cycle. Anyway, Connie, what's yours?
So mine is lots of Labour MPs have been coming out to defend poor Rachel Reeves, who's been at the back end of some horrific misogyny with her nickname Rachel from accounts. Now, I think this claim of misogyny is absolutely ridiculous, and Labour MPs need to get a sense of humour, and they're simply playing identity politics to deflect from the fact that people are not happy with the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
The left don't have a sense of humour, do they? That's the problem.
That is the problem.
It's fine to call Liz Truss a lettuce, and look, I'm fine, do it, go ahead. You know, it wasn't the greatest time in history, but it does seem like it's one rule for one group and another for the other side, right?
No, but the right wing do exactly the same thing. They don't like free speech when the left disagrees with them. There's loads of examples of that.
Go on.
It always happens. But it's always, I mean, but it's just, you know, if you, for instance, don't like what the majority view of students in university is.
They should absolutely have the right to say it. That's why...
Guys, we're going to be here for 5 hours.
Let's not get into that again. Shall I go...
But you think Rachel from accounts is fine? We can call her Rachel from accounts?
Yeah, or Rachel the Temp is another one bandied around.
Yeah. OK, all right. Kai, what's yours?
So Gen Z, i.e. people born between 97 and 2012, are not drinking. Take a look at this. We've got a graph that shows that Gen Z, look at that. Those are the 3 prior generations and how much they spend annually on alcohol in the US, and then Gen Z.
That's incredible.
Now, I'm asking, is this the no fun generation?
Well, I'm just about Gen Z. I'm the 2nd of January 90s. What are you trying to say, Guy? What are you trying to say? I'm just about, and I will say I'm doing my bit to get that graph a little bit higher. Connie, what are you making? You're still a student. What's it like?
Well, I was going to say I don't think I'm very reflective of most Gen Zs because I am at university, and I can assure you that there is no shortage of students in Leeds who are drinking.
I mean, honestly, maybe this is woke and kind of pathetic of me, but when I was at university, some of the drinking games or whatever, particularly in the societies like rugby, were honestly shocking.
But this is a woke thing. So lots of societies are now not allowed to do certain things. So because of safeguarding and well-being.
Speech, Connie.
Do you still do the Otley run?
Yes, I've done. I think I've done 5 or 6 Otley runs now.
Wonderful.
Otley run. What is the Otley run? Should I know?
16 pubs in a row.
So we did that at Bath.
Sounds great.
We did
that sounds too bad.
16 pubs around the East End of London.
Wow. Right.
And you had to have a drink at every one.
Yeah.
You know what, there? That sounds fantastic. All right, look, listen, Gen Z, we need to... I'm speaking to fellow Gen Zers. We need to do our bit responsibly. Still to come, we will answer all of your questions in Ask the Five. No topics are off limits. So let's see what you've got in store for us, Now, you're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News. Here is the weather.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
For anyone hoping to escape the midwinter gloom in the UK and find some sunshine, well, things are improving across the central Med, but they are deteriorating in Iberia. We've had some decent sunshine, and that continues in Spain. But for Portugal, a band of rain moves in on Sunday, and that will progress across Spain into Gibraltar during the next few days. Meanwhile, this low, which was named Storm Gabri by the Italians, is weakening, so less wind and rain for Italy, but it stays breezy in the Greek islands.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
TikTok chefs, Instagram chefs, that they put children off or young people off of cooking because it's so expertly done they can't do it. No, my young lad, he's 17, he is amazing in the kitchen. Oh, he is. He's amazing in the kitchen. And he gets it all off TikTok. He comes down, he can put burgers, wraps, stews, curries, sauces, and the smells in the kitchen. I said, where'd you get these? Oh, just TikTok, I'm trying it out. And it's just amazing the things that he can conjure up. So for some people, it might be... it's an inspiration for him. So they're saying that's intimidation. For my boy, it's an inspiration. They say it's entertainment. For my boy, it's an infomercial. I watch him doing his stuff. At that stage, I could do baked beans on toast and knock up a salad. That was it. But my boy can do all sorts of stuff.
It makes it accessible as well, doesn't it? Because lots of people say, like, you need an education to be in the kitchen, or you need to go find yourself loads of cookbooks. But you don't.
No.
You go on your phone now.
Well, I mean, like, all the spices, sesame oil. I mean, I'm amazed at the stuff that he does. So it's encouraging. All you just need is a kitchen well-stocked and have a go. And understand that failure is actually the route to learning. I mean, he's made mistakes, he's stuck stuff in the bin, but that young man, I am amazed at some of the stuff he does.
I don't mind cooking at all. It's cleaning up that I have the problem with. Dawn, let's talk about
Can I just say there are things called restaurants, by the way? Just put that one. My hell, I don't even know where the kitchen is.
OK.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now it is time for 5 Unleashed. Who has been unleashed this week? Yeah, it's me. So a new survey can determine if you are turning into your parents. And I went out and hit the streets today to ask punters, well, I mean, take a look for yourselves. I asked them if they're turning into their parents with a lot of very important questions. This is what happened.
Explain about the weather.
Yes.
Yes. Do you like to be tucked up in bed before 10 p.m?
Yeah, with a cup of tea as well.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm absolutely with you on that one as well. Have you recently taken up gardening?
No.
No? OK. All right. Do you have a favourite chair in your house?
Yes.
Which one?
It's the sofa, but I have my spot on the sofa.
Weather? It's okay. I mean, it's given the UK weather is unpredictable. It's just raining one minute and next weather is just sunny and it's just unpredictable.
You're not really complaining about it, though, are you?
Yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is. We'll say no. All right. Do you like to be tucked up in bed before 10 p.m?
No.
Have you got a hot water bottle?
I don't.
No? OK. You've made a household budget which you always stick to. What about that one?
No.
No? OK. Do you always repeat the same jokes?
Sometimes.
Right. Well, there you go. OK, so I think I slightly fudged the explanation there, so I'm going to give it another go. This is in the Daily Mail. It's research that says... I read some of those questions out. Here are the telltale signs for when you're turning into your parents, the average age of which is 43. So if you answer yes to a majority of these, you're probably like your parents. So I'm going to open this up to the panel.
I think I need to come first here as the only
Yeah.
person on this panel over 43 by quite a long way.
Well, listen, look, let's just go through. We'll conduct this scientifically. And we'll see what happens, right? You complain about the weather.
Yeah, all the time.
Right. You dress for comfort rather than
Sometimes,
aesthetic.
not always.
Right. Yeah. You like to be tucked up in bed before 10 p.m?
Always.
People say you look just like your mum and dad.
And I do look like my mum, but we've got a picture of me with my mum who is 81.
Ah.
That is my 81-year-old mother who doesn't know that photo's going on TV. And
right.
So I'm happy to look like my mum.
No, fantastic. Right, let's open it up a little bit. Kai, Connie, Will. Right, I'm just gonna fling these everywhere. Kai, do you dress for comfort?
Yes.
Will, you've got a household budget you always stick to?
No.
Connie, you feel guilty if you sleep in past 8 a.m?
Yes.
OK, anyone can just shout these out. You use loyalty cards and count your rewards or points. Who does that? Anyone here?
No. Only one, but I'm quite religious about it.
All right, who's got a hot water bottle?
No.
Yes.
No one's got a hot water bottle. You have a favourite chair?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Right, OK, so we're not doing too badly here. You don't recognise the latest music in the charts?
Oh, yes. Over the summer, I had a test with my siblings as to whether somebody was... whether a song was Chapel Rowan or Sabrina Carpenter. And I don't know either of them, and I don't know any of their songs. They seem quite nice, but they all look the same.
Connie, I'm going to ask Connie here, because... Right, yeah. What do you reckon? Do you recognise the latest charts music?
No, but I don't listen to that much music anyway.
Right, OK.
So,
have you taken up gardening?
No.
All right.
No, I don't think I'll be doing that.
Are you starting to monitor your household energy consumption?
Yes.
Well, actually, to be fair, my bills are included at uni, so we don't have to do that.
OK, all right. What about... I think I've gone through almost all of these. Now, this is an interesting one. You've realised, finally, that your parents are right all along.
I wouldn't go that far.
No.
Oh, wow. You've just put a photo up there. She didn't know that was happening.
Let's hope she's not watching.
She has now messaged me. There's a message from Mum.
Well, we won't necessarily read that out. But as I said, on average, 42 on average for women, and men don't turn into their parents until they're 45. Who's a parent here on the panel? Just Renee? Do you reckon... what do you reckon your kids would say to this
my
one?
oldest son is 36, so he's getting towards turning into me, I think.
Yeah.
He does like a cup of tea. He's got a tea cosy. There, I've just outed him now as well.
You're going to be in trouble.
But Kai's bunch of five is interesting in this regard because I think kids are getting more boring more quickly. You know, they're not drinking, they're not shagging, they're not, taking drugs.
Taking drugs.
You know, so I think they're actually maturing, if that is the right term, much earlier.
Right. Well, we've got some views coming in. Ivor says Gen Z to that point, drinking less but taking recreational drugs more. It's escapism, and under this government, who can blame them? OK, well that's
it's not
a knowing nod there from Connie. I just saw.
It's cannabis consumption is up in Gen Z, but not other drugs. They're not interested in the rest of the stuff. No.
Alan says, I'm going to keep... We've got a couple here, so I'm going to go through another one. Alan says, I think every one of the leftist students should be made to pick potato... All right, this is just referring to the bits we talked about earlier. Should be made to pick potatoes. We wouldn't have to rely on cheap foreign labour and the students would be with their intellectual equals.
Spot on.
Interesting.
Being a little bit anal, we don't pick potatoes, you dig them up.
Right, OK, well, there you go, Alan. But, I mean, do you agree with the spirit of what Alan is saying rather than the letter of it?
Well done, Alan.
With Trump's inauguration on Monday, Georgie asked, will you be celebrating glued to the TV or commiserating? Right, let's go around.
Yeah.
Kai, what do you reckon?
Well, viewers will be surprised to hear that I was actually at the Donald Trump inauguration the first time round.
Right, interesting. How was that?
Really...
You didn't think he was going to win?
Because I booked my flights before the election. That's right. 300 quid,
You were
thank
there,
you.
I'm with her, I'm with Hillary, and then...
Exactly. Yeah. I was an absolute moron. But I went anyway and was with a friend who's a Republican. I felt like I wanted to see a moment in history.
Yeah.
And I will be watching it.
Yeah. Connie?
I'm hopeful. I'm not jumping out of my seat excited, but I'm hopeful to see what good change will hopefully come. It's culturally, at least, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Renee? It has to be watched.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's indoors, isn't it? Which is a bit of a shame, but...
I'm assuming they're going to stream it, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. On the plus side, Village people are performing.
There we go. Right, crowd. Don't go anywhere, because tonight, backed by popular demand, is the brand new Saturday 5 Extra. We're going to let our hair down. Anything can happen, and as always, we want to hear from you. What could go wrong? So get ready. We'll be back in just a moment. So, 5, let's move, because we're moving over. We're going mobile.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, throughout this weekend, it's going to be cloudy, gloomy and cold with a touch of frost as we go overnight into Sunday morning. Looking at the bigger picture, then we have this area of high pressure extending to the south of the UK, squeezing the ice bars further towards the northwest with a weather front just coming in to Northern Ireland. But through the rest of this evening and overnight, we hold on to this blanket of cloud pushing its way further northwards into Wales and into northern parts of England. There'll be some clear spells in between, temperatures quickly falling here to give a touch of frost in places, mild further towards the west. Now to start Sunday morning then, a bright but cold start across northern parts of Scotland. Dry for all of us. There will be some spells of sunshine in between. Across Northern Ireland, we hold on to a lot of cloud once again, but temperatures holding up at around 7 or 8 degrees. Across Northern England though, a cold start here with a touch of frost, maybe even some mist and fog patches. And across the southern parts of England, that's where we'll see some drizzle, but even some snow grains just moving their way northwards. So it is going to be a cloudy, murky, gloomy picture on Sunday with a lot of cloud across the country. There will be some breaks in the cloud to give some sunnier spells, but these are mostly across northern parts of Scotland with outbreaks of rain just coming in to the far west. Otherwise, a cold picture as well, temperatures struggling 2 or 3 degrees, milder further towards the west. So a cold start on Monday morning, a touch of frost in places, often cloudy, and we'll see some rain just coming into northern parts of Wales and the Midlands with showers around the north and west coast of Scotland. Similar picture on Tuesday and Wednesday, a lot of cloud, outbreaks of rain and drizzle with temperatures around 7 or 8 degrees. Bye-bye for now.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine how £50,000 in cash from us could make your new year go with a bang.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I won the Spring Great British giveaway. So the day we got the money in our bank account, everything just felt a lot lighter. I would say if you're thinking about entering, just enter.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8699. 090 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's Saturday night, and for the yes, it is Saturday night. I can't even read now. And for the first time, this is the Saturday 5 Extra. It's going well already. I'm Adam Cherry, along with Will Kingston, Renee Honderkamp, Connie Shaw, and Kai Wilshot. We're on a sofa. We're on two sofas, and we've all got a tipple. So, guys, everyone, let's cheers. Cheers, everybody. Cheers. Plenty still to come. Our 5 highlights of the week, plus we'll go live to Washington, D.C. ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration. GB News' own Bev Turner is there for us. That's right, Bev is in Washington with Nigel Farage ahead of our coverage of the inauguration on Monday. That is from 3 p.m, so make sure you tune in. Then we'll be answering all your questions in Ask the Five, so send them through to www.gbnews.com/you'll say. But first, it's your Saturday Night News with Tatiana Sanchez.
Adam, thank you very much. The top stories. Over a dozen people have been injured in a ski lift accident. In Spain, Aston Ski Resort says around 15 people were injured, 3 of them seriously. The regional government previously said that at least 30 people had been injured, 9 of them very seriously. State TV channel TVE reported around 80 people remained trapped on the chairlift. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said he was shocked by the news of the incident. The Israeli Prime Minister's office says they cannot move forward with the ceasefire deal until, quote, we receive the list of hostages to be released. In a speech this evening, Benjamin Netanyahu said this war has changed the face of the Middle East, whilst also suggesting the campaign is not yet over. It comes after the Israeli army earlier said it was preparing to receive hostages after their release from Hamas captivity ahead of the ceasefire deal expected to take effect tomorrow. In a phased release, the first 3 hostages are to be freed tomorrow, followed by 30 more over a 6-week period. British hostage Emily Damari is reported to be amongst the first 33 to leave. In return, Palestinian detainees will be released and a sharp increase in humanitarian aid. Back home, pro-Palestinian protesters have been arrested in Trafalgar Square on suspicion of breaching protest conditions after demonstrators broke through a police line as they marched from a rally in Whitehall. Thousands of protesters met a line of police officers and eventually broke through, with those who made it to the square later finding themselves being held in one corner. The Metropolitan Police warned the group to disperse or face arrest, later announcing around 20 to 30 people who breached the conditions were being detained and arrested. Those arrests are for public order offences and for breaching conditions put in place by officers. Thousands of people are calling on the government to stop arming Israel. Donald Trump is to review the Chagos deal when he returns to the White House on Monday. The president-elect's team directly intervened in the British government's deal, demanding the delay, according to The Telegraph. Fears over Chinese influence if the strategically important islands are returned to Mauritius are fueling the delay. The US has a permanent military base on the East African island. Meanwhile, thousands of people marched from 3 separate points around Washington, D.C. today ahead of Trump's inauguration. The marches are being led by several national activist groups, including women's rights groups. The 47th president's inauguration will be the first to be held indoors since Ronald Reagan's in 1985 because of cold weather. Temperatures are expected to drop to minus 14 degrees. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Well, welcome back to the 5 Extra, as it's now called. This is the new part, this is the crazy part where we let our hair down a bit. It's the bonus hour. And I asked you in the break if I'm allowed to say we actually are drinking beer or if that was going to get me in trouble. We can say this is the real deal. This is it, because it does look a bit like we're drinking coffee. But no, it's the real stuff. Right, and we're kicking off.
It didn't look like you enjoyed that much, I must say. It looked like a kid having his first pie.
Oh, don't start.
Struggling to get it down.
Don't start this. Right, OK. No, I was
It tastes different in a mug, though.
It does. That's what I'm struggling with. No, I'm not struggling with it. I'll get through it quite quickly. Anyway, we're kicking off with Ask for 5. Nick in Nottingham has a question about President Trump and Brexit.
I have a nickname for Labour's top 3 politicians: Keir Starmer, Angela Ranta and Rachel Thieves. What's your favourite nickname for these 3?
Could you guys hear that?
Yes.
Oh, you could? Right, so, I thought there was a bit of difficulty there. So that was William. Best nicknames. Well, there's never hear Keir, isn't there? That's an obvious one. Well, you had a few good ones earlier.
Starmer the Farmer Harmer.
Starmer the Farmer Harmer.
Look, this is the thing, is that one of his many weaknesses as a politician is that his name is just so incredibly rhymable.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually somewhat unfortunate for him that you can actually reuse it in so many different derogatory ways.
Yeah, because when you had Rishi, what was it? I mean, there was Dishy Rishi.
That was complimentary. Yeah, and he didn't really pick up lots of good ones. That was the only good one I quite liked.
Jeremy Hunt had an obvious one, but we won't go there, will we? Who else?
Rachel the Granny Killer.
Well, I mean,
that's a bit dark, I think. They're meant to be fun. I think
she took away winter fuel allowance. Old people will die.
Yeah, well, I think there are better ones for Rachel Reeves if you really want to, Rachel from Accounts.
Rachel Accounts is
Rachel the Temp, I think, are quite funny. I mean, those come from Labour MPs as well, as Politico reported. So, you're allowed to say it.
Have we got any Trump nicknames for the Labour politicians yet? Has he targeted them?
I don't think so.
It's a shame.
But he has pioneered this, hasn't he? This sort of nickname of your political opponents, and he's so good at it.
And when other people try and do it, you can tell it's a phony. It's a bit like AI or something. They don't have the sort of whatever that. I won't even call it magic, because whatever that craziness is.
He does have that.
Oh, he definitely... Have you not seen that video where he's dictating his own tweets, or truth tweets, whatever you call them, to his aide? And so she'll sit there on the laptop like this, and he'll go, well, I think... Blah, 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 and she'll just literally verbatim...
Renee, you must see it. I imagine it's what it would have been like watching Da Vinci paint the Mona Lisa. It was just absolute genius at work.
You had, George Washington and all these figures in history, and then there's this guy.
Because we're always led to believe, aren't we, that these people are not really behind their tweets, that it's someone else doing it.
you could always tell with Trump that it's him. He was a master of the tweet format, and he still is one of the best posters in history, I think. He was made for this age of social media tidbits.
Secretly admiring him.
You can't underestimate Trump, and people have done it again and again and again. And if the left continue to do that, then, you know, we're out of office for years and years.
I think it's now it's beyond doubt that he's the most influential political figure of the 21st century.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with this second victory, right? And it's interesting what it does to Biden's legacy as well, because now he's kind of like a footnote in between the two. It's the Trump era where there was this 4 years where you had this guy who couldn't quite speak, and then Trump came back again. I'm going to move it on slightly. I know we're slightly short of time, but I've got a question here. Linda says, question for the 5. How did Will's date with the lefty girl go last week? What's that about?
I didn't know about this.
Right, here we go.
Yeah.
Not another drink, is it?
I might need another beer. So I don't know if the audience is aware of the term ghosting. So ghosting is basically a sad modern thing where...
Is it a Gen Z thing?
Well, you know, everything bad seems to arise from Gen Z. I wouldn't rule it out. I got ghosted. So...
Oh, man.
It was going really well, the messaging, and then I said Friday morning, you know, hey, we still on for tonight? And, you know, I've got Saturday 5 on Saturdays, so Friday's an important social night for me.
Yeah.
Didn't hear from her?
This was because, to put it into context for the viewers, if they didn't watch it, this was because you went on to a show the night before and she sent you a message saying she was concerned about some of
my political views.
You're cancelled.
She's
Kai, see, look, this is what happens. You get cancelled.
But this is the thing. But this is the thing. She was a Guardian reader, and you know, she was a massive lefty. And I'm going, you know, I want to reach across the aisle, and I want to find consensus, and I'm going to do that through my dating life. But these lefties just refuse to do it. Like, you know, I'm sorry, but they are. Oh, they're all.
So if there's any righties out there, Will is in Nick.
Yeah, I'm
just email in.
And you know, the good news is you're getting some more beers soon, so you'll be fine. Nick in Nottingham has a question about President Trump and Brexit. I read this out before. The mistake. Nick actually is asking this question now, so here it is. Here he is.
Hello, I'm Nick Simon from Nottingham. My question: with talks of a comprehensive US-UK trade deal being discussed, can President Donald Trump save Brexit?
Can he save Brexit? Interesting. I mean, it does feel like it's being dragged back into the consciousness in a way that everyone hoped it wouldn't, regardless of what side you were on. I thought we'd put this to bed a little bit, but now, here we are again. Renee, what do you reckon?
I think that Europe are going to be very worried about Trump in many ways, and I think they're going to do their best to embrace Keir Starmer, who's not going to resist, let's face it, he's going to be a puppy rolling over saying, scratch my belly, please. And they're going to try and pull us so far in that Trump can't pull us back out. But if we're sensible, we'll let him.
Anyone else want to jump in on that one?
It's a good question because, you know, lots of the sort of growth stuff that the government's been coming out with in the last few weeks are tinkering around the edges. Things like going to the regulators and asking for their growth plans. How absurd. Well, the one thing that stood out to me...
to ask for growth.
Exactly, but the one thing that did stand out is this idea that, you know, essentially going to Trump and trying to sort of supercharge what the UK needs to be doing. And if they succeed in doing that by having maybe a closer relationship to the US than Europe, if they make that decision consciously, then that could be a boon for the UK economy.
This Labour government very obviously doesn't want to do that. They hate Trump. They hate what he stands for.
I was going to say, like, this question is almost... We need to be asking that later on after we have actually... reconciled and perhaps some apologies. Perhaps some apologies from certain MPs.
I was going to ask Connie, what was it like on the campus when Trump won? Because I remember I was at Bristol University when he won the first time, and honestly, it was like when you do a funeral, state funeral was going on.
Yeah, I can. I wasn't there, but from what I was told, the bar that was streaming the election was very quiet, and there was only like one table celebrating, and they were getting some very odd looks.
Well,
good on them.
You know, sounds like a good table. You know, at least they're having a bit of fun, right?
If you wanted to be there, that was the table to be on.
You know what? I'm actually going to be on Monday. We're hoping for GB News to be at the Republican Overseas event, celebrating, having, you know, they're going to be celebrating at least the inauguration, watching it live. So that'll be interesting to see what that's like. Because it's like 4 or 5 o'clock our times. It's not actually that bad, you know. We can watch it and see how it all goes down. Right, well, I need more beer, actually, but I'm going to read out a couple more on my... It's not very professional, but it's the bonus hour, so it's all cool and fine.
No idea.
Basically, my laptop has run out of charge. Anyway, what's interesting you about the person sitting across from... Well, Tatiana's over there, and I've got Connie here, and I've got Renee here. Sitting across from you or next to you. So we'll go around...
What's interesting?
What interests you about the person... No one's interested in anyone else in this. It's complete.
I'm constantly interested by Kai's ridiculous views.
Yeah.
And I wonder to myself every week when I go home, does he truly believe what he has said tonight?
But, and you mentioned your mum earlier. You've defended me to your mother, who says, oh, Kai comes out with the most ridiculous things, and you said, you know, he's nice. We get on off air.
But you're willing to come on air and know you're going to get some stick from some people in certain dark waters.
Absolutely, and we violently disagree.
Yeah.
I'm interested in Connie's political progression. So, you know, there's that old Churchill quote that if you're not a Liberal at 20, you've got no heart. If you're not Conservative at 40, you've got no brain. And I feel like Connie is playing out that quote, but on warp speed, as opposed to over a 20-year period, she's condensed into about 6 months, which is fantastic. If you can short-serve that, fantastic.
But unlike some of you guys, I feel like you've come across very nuanced in what you've said today. You know, not just... sort of, you know, for your Trump example, you know, you're not all in on Trump like these guys.
I'm very cautious of committing myself to any particular point because I've seen how drastically my views can change on one topic, so I don't want to say that I'm one way or the other. I'm obviously not left-wing, but I'm not going to say that I love Nigel Farage and that I think reform should be the next government because... I don't want to be sucked into another echo chamber after just escaping
I think we've also moved into this new era where you can only support somebody if you agree 100% with everything. That's a nonsense.
They're in the in-group.
But also that people can't change their minds. I think we need to become much more open, and both the left and the right do this. They disavow people because of what they believed years ago.
When Connie was disavowed...
Yeah, I mean, well, maybe there's some. I accept there may be inconsistencies in what I say. That was years ago. Different show entirely.
It's the sportification of politics. We now we support the jersey. We don't support the underlying principles that the jersey should denote or should embody.
It's also very rare that you ever absolutely believe and concur with everything a person that you meet. I mean, you and I are good friends, but there will be things we disagree on. You're a mad libertarian sometimes. That's fine.
You're a fair weather freedom fighter. You like freedom when it suits you, and then you're very, authoritarian in some other bits.
Connie, do you ever get... I mean, we touched a little bit on this earlier. Do you ever get messages from people saying... I secretly kind of agree.
Oh, all the time.
I can't commit
Even
to this.
within my social groups at uni, I've had people only after... It was on an Otley run, actually.
Yeah.
Halfway through the Otley run, someone came up to me and whispered, don't tell anyone else.
After they'd had a few beers?
Yeah, we were
built up the Dutch courage.
8 pints through, yeah.
So it takes 8
So it took 8 pints.
That's scientific. It takes 8 pints to put up the courage to reveal your actual political beliefs. Interesting. Well, we'll see what happens, I suppose.
Polarised this. Because people really were in camps over COVID and vaccines, weren't they? I mean, I've got family members who just still to this day think I was absolutely crazy. And I know people that lost family members. You know, they don't talk to them anymore.
It's interesting. I mean, because I was at university just before COVID. I left in 2020. And I would have said, actually... A lot of the conversations we're having, they were heading in that direction anyway. Maybe COVID exacerbated it in some corners, but I feel like we were going towards this place anyway. I think, when did this really start?
There's lots of examples.
Social media has to be with the rise of Facebook, I reckon, is the turning point for polarisation and for tribal politics.
I don't know. Well, yes, in general, but for my generation, I think it came at Brexit. So I was 12 when we left the EU. And an assembly... we had an assembly and the teacher said, so everyone here, if you would have voted to remain in the EU, put your hand up. Bearing in mind it was a bunch of 12-year-olds. Nearly everyone put their hand up. And then he said, now who would have voted to leave? And I don't remember this, but apparently I was the only one who put my hand up. So even then I was a contrary. Obviously,
There are these big cleavage points.
You know, we were sort of given this impression that, OK, so the majority of people here, they're sort of normal. Of course, that's what people should think.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were told, you know, people might disagree with you. Remember to be kind to those you disagree with. But it was kind of pushed.
I got a text message on the morning of Brexit result from my son telling me I had ruined his life and that his grandma should not have been allowed to vote.
Wow. There are these big moments. What we've had, and I think Will's right, in that since the age of social media, the big political moments since all that kicked off have divided families and communities. You think about the independence referendum in Scotland, that was massive, and families completely splitting about that. Brexit, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Trump in America, massive. So all of these moments have become so much bigger and amplified.
Will, I'll let you just jump in there and then we're going to go to a break.
Yeah, allow me a quick attack on the left, because I think something that's changed on the left is now you're not merely, if you disagree with them, you're not merely wrong, you are a bad person. There is a moral dimension to the way that they think about these debates, which makes it very difficult to have good faith conversations.
There we go. So in a moment, we'll hear from GB News' own... That's one beer. We'll hear from GB News' own Bev Turner. She's in Washington, D.C. ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration. She will join us next.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Underestimate what you did, because to do it in their backyard as well, I bet they weren't happy about it, were they, Brad?
No, definitely not. Well, it makes it all the more sweeter. So they're usually pretty dominant in a two-man event, but four-man's usually where we can challenge them. And yeah, we managed to do it yesterday and put down 2 solid runs. And yeah,
so yeah, funding was a big issue for us in the last quad, but because of our results recently, we've picked up a lot more funding from UK Sport. So we're well funded now, and but yeah, the Bob is in the back of the van behind us, so we're driving it down to St Moritz as we speak. So yeah, that's how it all works in the background in bobsleigh.
Brad, you're the pilot, correct? So you're up front.
Yeah.
Now, what happens? I always wonder, because I remember seeing John Noakes on. Do you remember John Noakes on Blue Peter when he fell out of the Bob and he ended up showing the back of his backside on TV because he had a big scar on there? What? So you got the brake man. You're at the front. So where are you then, Aaron? Are you what number are you?
So I'm number 3. Yeah.
Right. So what do you do there? Is it just a matter of it's the running power is what it's all about to get off to a good start, and then you can sit and enjoy the ride?
Yeah, that's it. So for number 2 and myself, number 3, it's all about getting that Bob off the line and then just zipping it up to as high a speed as we can, basically. Yeah. Getting in, staying low, having good aerodynamics, and staying still and let Brad do the work.
Yeah, it's definitely not a comfortable position for them, because we're bending them and twisting them into quite an uncomfortable position to get as aerodynamic as possible. And when you've got 6 times G's pushing you through that, it's not... Yeah, not
definitely
fun.
stiff back this morning, that's for sure.
Because I'm just thinking where me and Eamon would sit. Is it 2 and 3, or would he go at number 4? What do you fancy?
I would be too frightened to do that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Extra on Monday, President-elect Donald Trump will officially be made the 47th President of the United States of America in his inauguration ceremony. And for the first time since 1985, it will be held indoors. Those cold temperatures is expected to peak at -6. I've seen some of the forecasts putting it even lower than that. That's Celsius, by the way. It's not Fahrenheit. Now, well, someone who has been braving the ice-cold weather is our very own Bev Turner. Bev, good to see you. Is it still chilly there? It looks a little bit wintry.
Hi, guys. Yeah, it is cold. It isn't terrible here today, to be honest. There isn't a breath of wind. The sky is quite blue, but it is definitely cool. And when the sun goes down this evening in about an hour or so, it definitely gets very cold here. But obviously the decision has been made that Monday will be much colder. And I think this decision has been taken as much from a kind of safety point of view of the crowd as much as anything. Yes, there will be former presidents who are elderly would have been sat outside, but there would also have been hundreds, thousands of people stood outside here in Washington, D.C. So the decision has been made. There's 30 miles of fencing which has been erected around the city to effectively keep the crowds in certain areas. That is now all, to some extent, not really needed. But you can see the Capitol Hill building behind me. This is where the inauguration would have taken place, on the steps of the building. It will now happen indoors, and a logistical headache for the organisers, because they have to work out which couple of hundred people are sufficiently important to be in that room. You can imagine some of the conversations which must be going on will be really, really difficult. But the atmosphere here in the city is actually quite calm, I would say, today. There was a huge protest, the People's March it was called. A lot of people, I've just seen them as I was walking here now, that were making their way away. Lots of pink hats, lots of pink clothes, lots of pink hair actually as well. But a lot of those people were protesting for women's rights. That seems to still be a sticking point for people with President Trump. A lot of the women thinking that he isn't in support of them, despite the fact, I would argue, that he's elected some rather powerful, strong women to rather senior roles in his administration. So who knows? Maybe those people can be convinced in the next few years that Trump doesn't hate all women, and that actually he very much loves this country and wants to do everything that is right for America, and particularly in the health space as well. Of course, Make America Healthy Again has been one of his slogans in collaboration with Robert Kennedy Jr. So it's going to be a huge time of change, obviously, for America. It feels very much like a divided city. It feels like a divided country, though, today. Look, the sun is coming out, guys, just for GB News. And it is going to be fascinating this weekend to see how it all goes.
Now, Bev, what can you tell us about the party that Nigel Farage held in that city last night? Was it the Stars and Stripes party? What happened there?
That's right. It was the Stars and Stripes and Union Jack, and it was held in probably the best location in DC, with an incredible view across the White House. There were probably a couple of hundred people there, all sorts of public faces from the UK, particularly from the Reform Party, of course, because Nigel Farage was effectively the host. So Nick Candy, the property investor who's now also backing Reform, was there. He had Ant Middleton with him, of course, from Celebrity SAS, who talked to me about the fact that he might run as London Mayor for the Reform Party. That was a bit of a shock. Who else did I talk to last night? We had... can you tell I'm a little blurry from my late night at the party? Steve Bannon,
we've got drinks in front of us.
American commentator. Oh, lucky you. Steve Bannon, of course, was there, a big supporter of Donald Trump, but not a supporter of Elon Musk. And he spoke to me about the fact that he doesn't believe that Elon Musk is the right person to be on board with Trump. But it was a fantastic evening, and there's this special relationship, of course, there is, between the UK and the USA. Liz Truss was also there last night, working the room and representing the country. So there's a real sense of optimism, obviously, from Trump supporters about how the world may change, not just this country, but the ripple effect of his policies and how they may change across the world, particularly making their way over to the UK.
Will's going to jump in with a question shortly, but I just wanted to ask your plans on Monday. Where are you going to be? What are we going to see from you guys on the inauguration day itself?
Well, my understanding is that we've got Michelle Dewberry and Martin Daubney, who are going to be in the studio in London. We're going to take as much of the ceremony as we possibly can. We have Steve Edgington, who is also the GB News American correspondent, who will be here with me. We're going to be talking to the crowds. We're going to have some of our favourite commentators, American commentators that GB News viewers will be familiar with, and also with a few other familiar faces as well, just to soak up the atmosphere, really. And everybody's got their fingers crossed that this goes ahead safely on Monday. The security services issued a statement saying that they are confident that it is 100% safe on Monday. There are 25,000 police and security agents who have been employed here this weekend. Obviously now having the actual ceremony indoors helps. It really helps from a security point of view. We heard today as well that the parade that would normally see the President and the Vice President walking along Pennsylvania Avenue from the White House to Capitol Hill, that has also been cancelled. That must be a relief to some degree from the security services, given that there were already assassination attempts on Donald Trump's life up to this point. So it will be smaller. It will be a calmer event to some extent. And it will set the tone almost, I think, for this presidency. It'll be interesting to see what Donald Trump says in his speech, of course, because that always sets the tone for a presidency. What will he come out and say? How does he unite this country, which is at the moment very divided over his victory in the election? He's got 100 executive orders that he's going to sign apparently within the first 24 hours. They're talking about him doing a clean out of undocumented migrants in Chicago. He's going to start his tenure running. He's going to start sprinting, I think, from the go on Monday. So we could see some significant changes in a really short space of time.
Yeah, Bev, as an aside, Adam's just told me to sit up straight and stop slouching, so hopefully my posture is acceptable. Bev,
quite right.
As this is all going on, you also have confirmation hearings for key cabinet positions for the Republicans. There was a fiery one with Pete Hegseth earlier in the week. There was Rubio, several of them. How are Republicans feeling about how that process is going, and do they think that they will get all of their nominations in?
The one I think that caught my eye was Kristi Noem, who's going to be the head of Homeland Security. She's the governor for South Dakota at the moment, and she is a really interesting pick because she is no nonsense. And there was one of the people who was endorsing her actually in the hearing who said, you know, she's effectively been a farmer's daughter. You don't mess with farmers' daughters. They want to get something done. They get it done. She's a country girl at heart. And she's talking about the fact that she has to clear up the chaos on the border. And she is talking in extremely strong language about the fact that she sees that as a war zone on that southern border at the moment with the number of undocumented migrants. What is fascinating, guys, and it's not just this country and the UK, it's how many of these issues are happening in lockstep across the world. If you talk to people here, the main issues, net zero, the energy agenda, it's about identity politics and the trans issue and whether a girl can be a boy. It is about undocumented migrants. They are the same issues all across the world. Inflation. Let me tell you, the prices here in America have taken my breath away. Now, apparently Washington, D.C. is always quite expensive as a city, but as Brits we're used to kind of coming to the US and shopping and going, wow, that's cheap, that's half the price. Now we have a weak pound as well, that doesn't help, but I have been really genuinely shocked by how expensive even basic items are in the supermarkets here. And in fact I spoke to somebody who was shopping beside me yesterday as I was buying some milk and some bread, and I said, wow, this is expensive. And they said, yes, it is. And we were talking about the fact that it's the same issue here with inflated prices as we've got in the UK. So from our point of view, I think as Brits, what Donald Trump does here, whether he does decrease taxes quickly, is he going to impose tariffs on people? How is he going to solve immigration? How is he going to handle the energy situation and net zero? Is it just going to be drill, baby, drill? And if so, does that set the precedent for the rest of the world to also start to reinvest in fossil fuel technologies? It is going to be, as I say, a significant day on Monday. It's the first domino, effectively, that's falling, from my point of view, that's falling, if you want to say, towards the old-fashioned political right. I'm not sure the right-left paradigm is even valid anymore in 2025. But this is the first domino that will fall, and let's see how that, the reverberations of that are felt all across the pond and to all of us.
Absolutely. Well, Bev, thank you very much for joining us. Stay warm. And on Monday, well, I'm sure we'll hear plenty more from you. That was Bev Turner for us in America, in Washington, D.C. Now, I tell you what, actually, we've had a couple... By the way, guys, what do we make of that? What do we make of what's happening on Monday? I know we talked about it a little bit already, but, moving it indoors...
It's a shame we didn't have more time, because I was going to ask Bev, when she was at the party last night, Farage's party, what was the chatter about the Chagos Island deal? Because has Nigel Farage become the most powerful politician in the country now, in that this deal has now been basically handed over to Trump, who I think will veto it.
And then what happens after that? You know, what does Starmer do? It makes him look incredibly weak, doesn't it?
What a sad state of affairs. This was once the greatest country that the world had ever seen, and now we're relying on an American president to save us from a traitorous government. It is an incredibly sad state of affairs.
Sorry, tell us how you really feel, Will. I'm sure you feel a little bit differently, don't you?
Yeah, no, I do. I'm just hopeful. I have to keep on hope. And all the Labour MPs and insiders I talk to are in the same situation. They're saying, look, it's really difficult right now, and lots of MPs didn't, especially new intake MPs, didn't expect things to be so difficult, but you just have to hope that with things like the relationship with the US, we've had briefings this way and the other in the past few weeks. We'll have to see what actually happens. You have to be a bit hopeful.
I'm hopeful that his war on woke and all of this nonsense that's been fed to our children will actually percolate through here, and I'm sure you are too.
But you have seen it on that point. It's interesting that you see. It does feel like the tide is turning on that sort of ultra progressive, that kind of that woke attitude, like the DEI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda, as someone would put it, is now that is receding in the likes of Meta, a lot of these big
they've had to,
tech
haven't they?
Well, that's sort of the point I'm making. Yeah, that's what. But I'm interested. It just sort of says that whole thing, at least for those companies, was a cynical thing. Yes. It was entirely profit motivated. It was all about being seen to be on the right side with the right people, doing the thing that made them look cool or whatever. And now, as soon as the spell breaks, see you later. The whole thing is junked. Unbelievable.
The vibe shift is undoubtedly real, and I think we're all feeling it. And look, whether or not you like Trump, it is undeniable that his election has shifted the Overton window, or what is acceptable to say in public.
So the Overton window is, as you say, things that people in polite society will say without being, more cancelled.
That's right. Yeah. It is undoubtable that has shifted back to a more sensible position, and that's, without question, a good thing for the world.
Apart from in the universities, it seems.
I was going to say, in America, maybe not here yet because of this government.
I would say Reform have done a lot of that before the Trump being elected. But the main thing that surprised me is I was unaware of this, but the rumour that Ant Middleton is going to be standing for Mayor of London.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
that'll be interesting. Because I mean, on that, there's a slight tangent, but we might as well, we'll cover that ground because Sadiq Khan won't be standing next time.
Thank God. Why is he not standing?
Because he's had a record-breaking 3 terms elected by Londoners, and good for him.
Yeah, he's done his bit, and he's Sir Sadiq now, and off he goes. Anyway, so it could be. Well, there was one rumour. They might try Deborah Mead in, but I don't know about that.
Excellent.
Point is, it's an open race next time. So that could be an interesting one for Reform. That could be a real test. Actually, even the Conservatives, if they put up a credible and serious candidate.
Well, they didn't succeed doing that last time, so I doubt they'll do it again.
Yeah. The one thing I would caution, though, is often with evil tyrants, the person who replaces them is worse than the evil tyrant. So I hope it's just not another awful illiberal progressive like Khan.
But in any case, it's a long way away. But it is an interesting thing to think about because it soon comes around, especially with choosing the candidates and so on. Anyway, coming up, I should say also, please keep sending in your questions to us. It's www.gbnews.com. Yeah, I've got help in the gallery because I can't remember. gbnews.com/you'll say. Send your questions to us and we'll get to them. Coming up, we'll get to more of those questions, so stick around. Be back in a moment.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, throughout this weekend, it's going to be cloudy, gloomy and cold with a touch of frost as we go overnight into Sunday morning. Looking at the bigger picture, then we have this area of high pressure extending to the south of the UK, squeezing the ice bars further towards the northwest with a weather front just coming in to Northern Ireland. But through the rest of this evening and overnight, we hold on to this blanket of cloud, pushing its way further northwards into Wales and into northern parts of England. There'll be some clear spells in between, temperatures quickly falling here to give a touch of frost in places, mild further towards the west. Now, to start Sunday morning then, a bright but cold start across northern parts of Scotland. Dry for all of us. There will be some spells of sunshine in between. Across Northern Ireland, we hold on to a lot of cloud once again, but temperatures holding up at around 7 or 8 degrees. Across northern England, though, a cold start here with a touch of frost, maybe even some mist and fog patches. And across the southern parts of England, that's where we'll see some drizzle, but even some snow grains just moving their way northwards. So it is going to be a cloudy, murky, gloomy picture on Sunday with a lot of cloud across the country. There will be some breaks in the cloud to give some sunnier spells, but these are mostly across northern parts of Scotland with outbreaks of rain just coming in to the far west. Otherwise, a cold picture as well, temperatures struggling 2 or 3 degrees, milder further towards the west. So a cold start on Monday morning, a touch of frost in places, often cloudy, and we'll see some rain just coming into northern parts of Wales and the Midlands with showers around the north and west coast of Scotland. Similar picture on Tuesday and Wednesday, a lot of cloud, outbreaks of rain and drizzle with temperatures around 7 or 8 degrees. Bye-bye for now.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This January, history will be made again.
Join GB News as we bring you full coverage of Donald Trump's presidential inauguration.
From the swearing-in ceremony to the celebrations, we'll be there to capture every moment that shapes the next chapter of world politics.
The best guests, live updates and unparalleled insight as Donald Trump becomes the 47th President of the United States. The inauguration Monday from 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
History will be made again.
Join GB News as we bring you full coverage of Donald Trump's presidential inauguration.
From the swearing-in ceremony to the celebrations, we'll be there to capture every moment that shapes the next chapter of world politics.
The best guests, live updates and unparalleled insight as Donald Trump becomes the 47th President of the United States. The inauguration Monday from 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5 Extra. It's time for more of your questions in Ask the Five. John has a question about house building under Labour.
Good evening, panel. My question this evening is to get some clarification on where the panel thinks the building workers are going to come from to build the new houses that the government hopes to achieve by the end of its current term. It's clear that the average age of building contractors is something in the order of 50-55. Young people are not coming into the industry, and this is going to leave a shortage of workers on building sites. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you for that, John. So the number of houses they want to build is what, 1.5 million?
Yeah.
Okay.
But this is an example of what we've done to our children. We've convinced our children that being a brickie or a plasterer or a roofer is not a respectable job, that you need to go to university and do a degree in Mickey Mouse studies and come out and get a graduate job. What we need to do is we need to take the 15% of young men who are not in education or work, and we need to give them apprenticeships fast, because these people can earn 150,000 quid a year being self-employed. We need to tell our children that actually every job is respectable. It doesn't matter what it is, be your own boss.
It's interesting. I wonder if there's a slight change of... It's very slow, not quick enough, but is there a slight change in attitude towards that? Because it felt like when I was leaving, when I was in sixth form, I was leaving school 10, 11 years ago, there wasn't even a discussion about, obviously, you go do your UCAS form, apply to your universities, try and get in a Russell Group, try and go to Oxbridge if you can, job done. No one even considered saying, why don't you go and learn to be a Sparky or something?
You're right that things have changed from when I was at school when it wasn't a discussion, but not enough. And it's exactly as Renee says. we have this bigotry of low expectations about jobs like you know, in construction, as the example is, but there are plenty of other examples where kids can earn a bunch of money pretty quickly, be well trained, you know, apply that across different industries. It's not happening, and also the problem about things like this is it takes a long time to change that. And so is the question about the 1.5 million houses that need to be built, yes, you can put things in place to have the people with the right skills, but that's not going to happen for years.
Connie, what's your view on this as a student? What's it like within the... I know I keep saying this, but it's an interesting perspective to learn from, right? So what's your...
Well, I would say that the thing about going into apprenticeships rather than going to university, I would say that I'm just happy that I went to uni, but I feel like other people who have gone to uni for the experience, because that's what everyone else is doing, realised too late. And then there are other people that we were at school with who went straight into jobs and they're earning a lot of money. Yeah. And we're now maybe like 5 or 6 years behind, because not only have we spent 3 or 4 years at uni, but then the rate at which graduates actually get jobs is extremely slow.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And now everyone's slowly realising you're right, yeah. All right, Brian has a question. Why are we not using the North Sea to benefit the UK?
The panel, my question to you is, why is it that we have to rely on other countries for our supply of gas, oil? We have a zone in the North Sea. We were told this week that we were nearly out of gas. We had a week's worth left. And still, the government, not just this one, but the previous government, still won't drill for more to help us out. We're dependent on other countries when we have some on our doorstep.
Well, very quickly on this one, I mean, he's right, isn't he? Really? Well, you know, why are we not? Why are we importing all our energy? Yeah, we're not drilling. We're not in the North Sea. We're not opening any new.
I don't have an answer.
We're not even going.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for Brian. Lord knows, because you know it is obviously cultural and suicide for us not to take advantage of the resources that we have.
Yeah, because we have some of the highest energy prices in the world, don't we?
We're also creating massive carbon footprints by shipping it across the Atlantic and around the Baltic as LNG, and then having to reconstitute it. It's just ideological net zero madness.
I was going to say to people like Kai, because this will come up every time.
Shortly.
This is purely symbolic. The emissions that the UK produces are 3/5 of bugger all. You know, it is not. This is entirely virtue signalling at the expense of the British people.
Kai, very quickly, do you want to shoot back?
I disagree. but look, if everybody just used all the resources that they had in country, right, willy-nilly, if you like, then nothing would happen on the climate agenda, because they could always point to somebody else who's not doing anything. So it's still important for people like for us in Britain, because we obviously don't have that many emissions compared to some countries, but it's still important. You can't have some people doing it and some people not. Net zero has been mismanaged. The process has been sort of really ill thought out because there's this urgent need. But I actually agree, if we could use other forms of energy while we also transition to net zero, which I still think is the right thing, then that would be the right thing.
We could talk about this all night, I'm sure. But we're going to go to a break. But coming up, it's High Five. Our panel picks the highlights of the week so we can end on a positive note, or a high. End on a high, how about that? Back soon.
Can't wait to get in that sea. Lovely and warm. Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The midwinter gloom in the UK and find some sunshine. Well, things are improving across the central Med, but they are deteriorating in Iberia. We've had some decent sunshine, and that continues in Spain. But for Portugal, a band of rain moves in on Sunday, and that will progress across Spain into Gibraltar during the next few days. Meanwhile, this low, which was named Storm Gabri by the Italians, is weakening, so less wind and rain for Italy, but it stays breezy in the Greek islands.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
5 years ago today, Harry and Meghan shocked the world when they announced that they were stepping back from royal life. in what has since been dubbed Megxit. Many royal experts thought the future of the royal family was in doubt after the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's bombshell Oprah Winfrey interview, their scornful Netflix documentary, and Harry's autobiography Spare that took aim at William and Catherine. Pleased to be joined now by entertainment and royal journalist Sarah Louise Robertson. Sarah, thank you very, very much. Great to have you on the show. So, Megxit, 5 years on, how's it gone for them?
It couldn't have gone any worse. I remember, as you pointed out there, Patrick, 5 years ago, one senior courtier called this move a declaration of war on the royal family. Well, this is a war that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have lost. They are the losers in this whole sordid affair. And the royal family have come out stronger, more unified, and better than ever. You know, she had it all in her hands to play with. It was all there to play with. She had the HRH title. She could have gone on to do wonderful things. And what's she now? A reality star. She's not even a working actress anymore. This new cookery show, Netflix have put it in the reality side of their categories. What a come down that is. We don't see them together in public anymore. She's doing her thing. She's going down the avenue of reality TV. And Harry's trying, I think, to do some of his charity work.
I still think that if he held his hands up and some things happened, that maybe the British public would.
He'd have to beg his brother. He'd have to beg his brother. The sticking point here is Prince William. Charles, yes, misses his son. I will say that again. He does.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
For High Five, this is actually a new feature of the 5 Extra, so we're debuting it for the first time. Basically, each panellist picks a highlight of the week so we can end the show on a high, which sounds good to me. Surprisingly, it's our resident lefty who wants to kick things off. Kai, go for it.
Yes, and High Five has not been chosen because I get accused by all the viewers of being high myself. Yep. No, my good news... My good news is just that these new flights have been instituted, going from, I think it's Newquay to London. Amazing. £59.99, which, looking at the state of rail infrastructure in this country, you know, you're not likely to travel around the country for your summer holidays, but actually, this might mean that people do get to see the beautiful west of England, and I think we should do more of this stuff.
Because it takes about 10 days to drive there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be great for more Brits to actually holiday in different parts of the UK, not because of cost of living, though that's a part of it, not because they like the don't like the idea of going abroad, but actually because there's great stuff here that people don't see enough of.
Absolutely. Right, Connie, what's your good news?
The thing that made me laugh this week was Keir Starmer showing off his muscles to scare off Putin.
That's your good news.
In his casual attire.
Good news, Keir. It's gone down well here with the Saturday 5 Extra. Very good stuff. All right, my turn. I'll be very quick. Guys, everyone, I want you to raise your glass because the great news of the week is that the economy has grown by a whopping 0.1%. Oh, my goodness. Everyone, huzzah.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. Drink, finish the glass. Let's have another one. That is best news I've ever heard in my life. Right, OK, Renee, over to you.
My good news story was a couple with their little child who got chased in the October 7th, and she could no longer carry her baby, so she gave it to the husband, and she ran in a different direction to actually throw these barbarians off of her scent. They captured her, but the husband and child got away. She was released in the last hostage release, and she's talked about how to slowly rebuild her life after hostage. Small steps, cook together, start remembering who you were before this awful thing. And that, I thought, was a lovely, positive story.
I'd say, we're going to get to yours and say that's probably the best one out of our selection here. So so that's very good. Will,
we haven't heard Will.
We haven't heard. We'll ask it over to you, Will.
The woke cult is dying. Pete Hegseth, the nomination for Defence Secretary, came out with this cracker. I think we've got a clip in his nomination hearing.
Front, you have to tear out DEI and CRT initiatives root and branch out of institutions.
100%.
And then you have to put in Army, Navy, and Air Force secretaries and others, civilian positions at the helm, who are committed to the same priorities that the President of the United States is, and if confirmed, the Secretary of Defense will be. Send a clear message that this is not a time for equity. Equity is a very different word than equality. Equality is the bedrock of our military. Men and women, duty positions in uniform, black, white, doesn't matter. We treat you equally based on who you are in the image of God as an individual.
Oh, it's audible chocolate, isn't it? Unbelievable.
You like that one?
Yeah.
We need more like him.
So he's an interesting character, isn't he? He will get through. He will sail through. Well, he won't sail through. He'll probably get, 53, 54? Because the way it works in the US is you submit yourself to the Senate panel there, and you have that hearing, and then they all vote. And if you get a simple majority, plurality, you're in.
Yeah.
It used to be almost overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
Supermajority, regardless of party.
The number of positions that are Senate confirmed is huge. That's the key difference between the US and the UK, is actually lots of the positions filling the US government have to go through a confirmation hearing. But that also means that they are much more political than, say, a senior civil servant can be. And so really interesting to see who he places in these positions, how the Senate hearings go, and that's sort of key to his mission, because last time they didn't think he would win the election, and so didn't prepare. Now they know exactly who they're appointing.
Totally different game this time. One thing that caught my eye today is Vivek Ramaswamy, who's supposed to be heading the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency with Elon Musk. He apparently is now running for the governorship of Ohio, right?
Yeah.
So has he already been shown the door? What's going on there?
The first job cut in DOGE by Elon Musk and Vivek was, in fact, Vivek Ramaswamy himself.
There was some irony in the fact that the Department of Government Efficiency had two leaders rather than one, when everyone else only had one. But there we go. Right, it's only a couple of days to go before the inauguration before it all kicks off. Now, that brings us to the end of the show. So, guys, you're going to have to finish up your drinks pretty quickly. You've done quite well so far. Thanks to our guests and to you, our lovely audience, for joining us in the fun tonight. Up next, it is the brilliant Ben Leo tonight. Oh, my goodness. It's Ben Leo tonight with Alex Armstrong, formerly of this parish. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week. Cheers.
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 There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, throughout this weekend, it's going to be cloudy, gloomy and cold with a touch of frost as we go overnight into Sunday morning. Looking at the bigger picture, then we have this area of high pressure extending to the south of the UK, squeezing the ice bars further towards the northwest with a weather front just coming in to Northern Ireland. But through the rest of this evening and overnight, we hold on to this blanket of cloud, pushing its way further northwards into Wales and into northern parts of England. There'll be some clear spells in between, temperatures quickly falling here to give a touch of frost in places, mild further towards the west. Now, to start Sunday morning then, a bright but cold start across northern parts of Scotland. Dry for all of us. There will be some spells of sunshine in between. Across Northern Ireland, we hold on to a lot of cloud once again, but temperatures holding up at around 7 or 8 degrees. Across northern England, though, a cold start here with a touch of frost, maybe even some mist and fog patches. And across the southern parts of England, that's where we'll see some drizzle, but even some snow grains just moving their way northwards. So it is going to be a cloudy, murky, gloomy picture on Sunday with a lot of cloud across the country. There will be some breaks in the cloud to give some sunnier spells, but these are mostly across northern parts of Scotland with outbreaks of rain just coming in to the far west. Otherwise, a cold picture as well, temperatures struggling 2 or 3 degrees, milder further towards the west. So a cold start on Monday morning, a touch of frost in places, often cloudy, and we'll see some rain just coming into northern parts of Wales and the Midlands with showers around